In this world, there are dungeons. Ancient vaults hidden across the globe. They were guarded by terrifying beasts. Only the strongest dared to enter. But everything changed with a new weapon. A system that allowed users to summon powerful living weapons. These summons would fight for their masters, drawing power from their summoner's own life force, and unleash it upon their enemies, unleashing it with terrifying force. A power met with an equal devastating response. The battlefield itself groaning under the strain. These living weapons were given a name. They were called battle dolls, a power granted only to the lucky few, or more accurately, the ridiculously rich, who could just keep pulling until they won. But for our main character, Cool, life wasn't a game. It was a constant, terrifying struggle. For Cool, the day starts on a workshop couch. He rises, already wearing the weight of his work. With a sigh, he heads out for another shift. The world outside seems deceptively calm, but the streets are filled with talk of lucky summons, a world of wealth he can only dream of. Suddenly, a massive ad fills the sky, showcasing the latest top-tier battle doll. Cool just yawns, knowing it's a fantasy here. The marketing team really missed their target audience. His shift takes him to a bustling local tavern, where he's been called to fix a malfunctioning service doll. He quietly explains to the owner that you get what you pay for. Cool gets to work, sparks flying from the doll's inner mechanics. But after a moment of careful inspection, he finds the problem, a cracked anima core, its power source. The owner doesn't care for the technical details, demanding a quick fix. Cool sees an opening, explaining a new part will cost extra. The owner protests, but Cool reminds him it was only an estimate. The negotiation fails spectacularly, leaving Cool with nothing. Backed into a corner, Cool knows he needs this job. And he knows the only place to find a replacement part, a place buried deep within a traumatic memory. A memory of a blinding flash and a world-shattering explosion. The last time he ever saw his father, he returns to the present, his expression grim. Just as the local drunks decide to offer their commentary, Cool's patience wears thin, his eyes glowing with rage. But his anger is met only with drunken laughter. He finally turns to confront them directly. But instead of fighting, Cool offers a simple observation, as his hand discreetly activates a hidden device, planting a small gadget on the leg of their stool. He then offers to buy them a drink, playing the fool. He even joins in on their laughter, mocking his own work. Then, with a cold glint in his eye, he springs his trap, sending the two bullies flying across the floor. The tavern owner can only stare in disbelief. Cool simply tells him to have the money ready. As he heads towards the coast and the ghosts of his past, Cool arrives at a quiet dock as the sun begins to set. He's greeted by an old ferryman named Tom, who seems surprised to see him. The old man immediately starts grilling him about his desperate need for cash. But Cool just brushes off the concern with a vague reply. He asks about business, only to hear the scrapyard is a toxic dump. Cool can only sigh, realizing some things never change. With the pleasantries over, Tom asks if he's ready to depart. Cool offers to take the boat out himself to save the old man the trouble. But Tom dashes away with surprising speed, leaving Cool in the dust, shouting back that our boy still has to pay for the rental. Cool speeds across the water, leaving the docks far behind. He soon arrives at his destination, a graveyard of forgotten technology. Alone, he navigates the mountains of rust and ruin. With practiced ease, he tears through the piles of junk. But it seems he's not the only one scavenging here. The newcomer remarks that patience always pays off in the yard. The sun sets and the hours bleed into night. Cool has gathered a few useful components. But the one thing he needs remains elusive. He knows you could search these hills for a lifetime and find nothing, and you would still barely scratch the surface of what's buried here. But Cool figures if he can't find a core, he can at least upgrade his arm. In a place like this, you're bound to find something unexpected. Or in his case, something unexpected finds him. He's suddenly yanked off his feet, realizing he's been caught by an unseen force. A heavy anchor pulls him down into the mountain of junk. The grip is relentless, making him wonder if it's actually alive. He braces himself, pulling back with all his strength, and slams his unseen assailant into the ground with a powerful crash. The ground gives way, sending Cool plummeting, along with his mysterious attacker. They fall into a hidden chasm deep beneath the scrap. He can only stare, wondering what is happening. His assailant is a girl, seemingly unconscious. As they continue to fall faster and faster, Cool realizes this is a terrible time to learn to fly. With quick thinking, he grabs onto her leg, pulling her into his arms to brace for impact. They hit the bottom with a crystalline crash. Cool gasps for air, the impact knocking the wind out of him. He sits up, still holding the girl who attacked him. He clicks his tongue in annoyance, checking for damage. The fall definitely left its mark. But considering the height of the fall, he got off easy. He looks down at the girl, remarking on her luck. Back in his workshop, Cool can hardly believe his eyes. He's found plenty of junk in that scrapyard before, but never a nearly pristine battle doll. And his first thought isn't rescue, but profit. Cool tries to temper his excitement, knowing she was in a junkyard for a reason. But as he inspects her, he finds her design is unlike any he's ever seen. He then notices something clutched tightly in her hand, a small, blood-stained pawn from a game he doesn't recognize. As he puzzles over the strange doll, a voice cuts through his thoughts. He's startled by a young girl who's been watching him the whole time. She nervously asks what he's doing, holding a broken toy of her own. Apparently, her little robot companion is broken once again. Cool playfully scolds her, because he's the designated fixer of all things. She just looks at him with pleading eyes, asking for his help. Cool quickly diagnoses the problem with her toy as a simple jam, but her attention is quickly drawn to the mysterious doll in the corner. She asks if he got it from a lucky pull, but Cool admits he found it in the scrapyard. He notes its amazing condition, despite a few strange irregularities, which leads to a very hands-on and slightly aggressive technical lesson. He explains that anima is the life force that powers all doll technology, a process made possible by a special core crystal that every doll has. But this doll doesn't have a crystal, just a piece of raw, unrefined ore. The young girl can't help but notice how lifelike the doll seems. Cool agrees, noting its design is far more sophisticated than anything he's seen. He taps the ore, noting that without it, she'd seem completely human. He sends a small diagnostic current through her foot, and excitedly points out the meticulous engineering to the girl. He then presses the strange core on her chest. The young girl senses something is wrong, and Cool agrees her design is far too advanced. As the core begins to hum, the girl tells him to stop poking the unconscious doll, but it's already too late as the doll's eyes snap open, a brilliant golden light flaring to life within them. Cool, however, is still lost in his diagnostics, marveling at her skeletal structure, until the doll looms over him, demanding to know what he's doing. Cool stammers out a greeting, trying to de-escalate the situation, but her eyes reflect only a target. She lunges forward with blinding speed. He barely manages to block the blow, questioning her programming. But even mid-fight, he can't help but admire his lucky find. A thought he immediately regrets as she throws him across the workshop. He tries to reason with her, realizing he accidentally woke her up by creating an anima link between them. The doll ignores him, turning her attention to the terrified young girl, who can only cower before the imposing figure. The doll's gaze locks onto her new target. Cool realizes with horror that she's targeting the child. He throws himself between them without a second thought, shoving the doll aside and screaming for the girl to run. But Annie can only stare, frozen in terror. The doll's attention snaps back to Cool, her primary obstacle. Cool knows he can't win a brawl, so it's time for some technical support. His only chance is to sever the anima link by touching her core. He lunges forward, reaching for the glowing crystal on her chest, an attempt that is shut down with almost casual ease. She sweeps his legs out from under him, unimpressed by his efforts. Lying on the floor, Cool realizes a direct approach is useless. But as he looks up, a new, slightly insane plan begins to form. The doll is sent flying, finally demanding to know who he is. Cool tries to explain he was just trying to help her out, telling her he found her abandoned in the scrapyard. He raises his hands, suggesting they could just talk things over, like two reasonable people, one of whom isn't a murder bot. She's confused, with no memory of being thrown away, but if he has answers, she's determined to beat them out of him. Cool just smirks, deciding it's time for Plan B. She's caught off guard as a piece of junk flies past her head, which promptly explodes in a shower of sparks. She realizes he must have planted something on her during the fight. Before she can react, a metal sheet springs up around her. Cool stands ready, his trap sprung perfectly, as rings of energy bind her, leaving her completely immobilized. And suddenly, her mind flashes to a desolate wasteland, where she holds a golden king, lost and confused, watching a mysterious figure walk away into the dust. Cool's voice cuts through the darkness, asking if she's okay. He worries his trap might have done more than just disable her, but her eyes snap open, the golden light returning. She's back on the workshop bed, seemingly inert once more. A green light glows from a bracelet on her wrist as her fingers twitch, and in a blur of motion, she's on her feet again. Cool just sighs, clearly tired of this song and dance. He clicks a small remote ready for round 2. A device on her shoulder begins to glow and beep, sending her flying back with a powerful magnetic pulse. The doll is pinned against the wall, her hands locked in place. Cool calmly tells her to save her strength. The magnetic locks won't break. But their little standoff is interrupted by a new arrival. A blonde girl storms in, scolding Cool for scaring the doll. Cool reminds her that the doll just tried to kill him, but she seems unconcerned. The three of them are locked in a tense and frankly bizarre argument. The newcomer simply walks over and deactivates the restraints. The battle doll can only stare, confused by this sudden turn of events. The blonde girl offers a warm smile, telling her she can trust them. And somewhere nearby, a little robot companion seems to agree. The battle doll strains against the magnetic restraints. The blonde girl furiously demands to know why Cool trapped her again. But Cool refuses to take any chances, especially with her safety. An argument she clearly isn't winning. He finally relents, but keeps his finger on the trigger. A few hours later, tensions have finally settled. The little robot companion begins the interrogation. The doll explains her memory is a blank, with only fragments remaining. She has no recollection of a summoner, just a mysterious hooded figure. Cool suggests a memory wipe, which infuriates his young friend. The doll theorizes that her memory loss is a defect, making her disposal a logical outcome. The blonde girl is horrified by this cold logic, but Cool steps in, offering a different philosophy. He explains that if something is broken, you fix it. The blonde girl then presents the golden pawn, hoping to jog her memory. The doll takes the small object, which begins to glow in her palm. A fragmented memory flashes through her mind, but she still can't place it. Cool watches on, his expression unreadable. He starts to make a sarcastic comment, only to be silenced by a sharp elbow, and with that, the day draws to a close. The next day, Cool leads the doll through the town square. He explains their first stop is to dig up information on her past. She seems genuinely surprised that he's trying to help her. Cool clarifies he's only doing it to avoid a tantrum from Eni. When asked why the girl didn't join them, he offers a vague excuse. He tries to break the silence, asking about her new clothes. She notes they're not great for combat or for making a quick getaway. A comment that immediately sends Cool into a paranoid panic. He reminds her that escape is impossible thanks to their shared anima link. Just then, he announces that they've reached their destination, the Adventurers Guild, a towering monument to record-keeping. Cool explains that their records aren't exactly public, so he tells her to wait while he goes in alone. Left to her own devices, the doll waits patiently, until her sharp eyes catch a new arrival, a boisterous adventurer named Tapa bragging about his latest haul. The local gossip mill identifies him as a rich merchant's brat, but the doll's attention is drawn to a dark stain on his bag, a detail that doesn't escape the notice of another observer, who then turns his gaze to the mysterious girl waiting in the shadows. He notes her eyes are far too alive for a simple service doll, and wonders just who her powerful summoner could be. Meanwhile, Cool makes his way into the guild's main hall. He's greeted by an old friend, Momo, who seems less than thrilled to see him. She immediately scolds him for his long absence, and with a healthy dose of suspicion, asks what he's doing here. Cool puts on his best smile, asking for a tiny favor, which is instantly denied. Apparently, his charm isn't as effective as he thinks. The two old friends quickly fall into a familiar argument, but their bickering is cut short by a much louder customer. It's Tapa, the braggart from outside, here to collect his reward. He slams his massive haul onto the counter with a dramatic flourish. With a grin, he pulls back the covering, revealing the severed head of a monstrous beast. The crowd erupts, recognizing a Titan-class kill worth thousands. Cool can only stare, his own problem suddenly seeming very small. But as he looks closer, he notices a strange wound on its face. He wonders what kind of weapon could leave such a mark, as Tapa laughs. Meanwhile, outside the guild's walls, the doll waits, holding on to Cool's promise to find answers. Her mind flashes back to the hooded figure, wondering if he's the key. But Cool's attention is fixed on the strange burn wound. His mechanic's eye sees something the others have missed. Tapa proudly presents his legendary axe, the Heart Cleaver. Momo, however, is less than impressed with the mess on her desk. He then tries to use his newfound fame to charm the receptionist, an offer she is desperately and internally trying to refuse. But Tapa insists he's a nice guy, promise. That's when Cool decides to chime in with some technical feedback. He points out the cheap steel hidden beneath its shiny veneer. Tapa scoffs, questioning what a simple mechanic would know about weapons. Cool calmly points out that axes don't usually leave burn marks. The braggart's face darkens, his lie exposed to the entire guild. The crowd's admiration quickly turns to mockery and suspicion. Tapa's knuckles turn white as he grips his weapon in a rage. But Cool remains unfazed by the rising tension. With a roar of fury, Tapa swings his axe, aiming to silence the mechanic for good, only for Cool to block the massive blade with his prosthetic arm. The legendary weapon shatters into pieces, leaving Tapa stunned. Cool notes that he's glad he reinforced his arm after the doll's attack. Humiliated, Tapa calls upon his own battle doll to end this. A warrior named Grizz appears, looking less than thrilled to be summoned. But he quickly powers up his weapon, ready to get this over with. Outside, the doll continues her patient vigil under a tree, until a massive explosion erupts from the guild hall, sending debris flying and catching her completely off guard. She sees Cool through the smoke, calling out his name in concern. He insists that he's fine, his arm having taken the brunt of the blast. Though it seems his pants weren't quite so lucky. The doll steps forward, moving towards the chaos. But her concern is met with Cool's very different emergency. As the smoke clears from the guild's shattered entrance, Toppa's battle doll, Grizz, emerges, annoyed about his ruined cloak. Cool can only stare in awe at a real fire-wielding battle doll, a moment that's quickly overshadowed when he sees his own doll has arrived. Toppa screams for the kill, but Grizz seems tired of his master's voice. Still, he sighs and decides to finish the job, lunging forward. Cool's face hardens, knowing he stands no chance against this foe. He grabs the doll, shouting that it's time to make a run for it. But before the blow can land, his doll leaps into action, meeting the fiery blast with a will of her own. She grabs the shaft of the weapon, stopping it cold, and uses his own momentum to send him flying. Grizz crashes to the ground, his weapon now in her hands. The onlookers can only stare in utter disbelief. Even the doll seems surprised by her own strength. But the fight has not gone unnoticed. From high above, a pair of eyes watches the scene, and a mysterious observer seems quite pleased with the outcome. Cool can only stare, his mind racing to understand her power. The doll examines the fiery weapon, still glowing in her hands. A surge of power courses through her, familiar yet unknown. But Grizz is already back in the fight, lunging to reclaim his spear. She dodges his desperate grab with effortless grace, spinning away in a blur of motion. She lands perfectly, feeling like her body was built for this. Her golden eyes narrow with a cold, focused intensity. Grizz questions her tactics, wondering why she hasn't summoned her own weapon. He smirks, assuming she's too arrogant to need it. Grizz scoffs at her confidence, ready to prove her wrong. But she moves like a phantom, dodging his fiery slashes with ease. Enraged, Grizz unleashes his full power with a furious roar. A massive wave of fire tears through the street. Cool watches in terror, knowing she can't survive a direct hit. He screams for her to move to get out of the way. But the doll stands firm, believing she can stop the blast. Her golden eyes burn with an unshakable resolve. And in that moment, something deep within her awakens. A memory surfaces, the hooded figure bidding farewell to Annika. The name echoes in her mind. Annika. But Cool is still trying to reach her, desperate to pull her from the blast. Just as the flames are about to hit, a new figure appears. A water-wielding doll named Pearl materializes from thin air. She raises a massive wall of water, forming a protective sphere that engulfs the fire. Grizz can only stare, completely stunned by the interruption. Cool is equally baffled by this sudden and very convenient rescue. Even the mysterious observer seems surprised by this turn of events. The flames die down, leaving Pearl untouched in the aftermath. A new figure steps onto the scene, her presence calm and controlled. She's Kalia, a guild assistant, and she's clearly annoyed by all the extra paperwork this fight will cause. Meanwhile, Momo is having a complete and utter meltdown. She grabs a nearby guild member, screaming at Cool for the mess he's made. Her career flashes before her eyes as she accepts her inevitable firing. But Kalia is already on the case, identifying Cool and Annika as unlicensed trespassers, a fact that seems to catch our heroes completely off guard. She gives them a simple choice: leave now or be removed by force. Cool tries to explain that Toppa was the one who instigated the fight, but Kalia shuts him down, explaining that guild members get special treatment, and it's none of his concern. Toppa laughs, gloating that he has the guild on his side, but Cool's expression remains cold and unimpressed. He tells Toppa to take his complaints to his broken axe, even offering the guy a discount on a new weapon. Annika can only wonder if Cool has any shame at all. With the situation thoroughly de-escalated, Cool decides it's time to go, but Annika stops him, clearly not finished here. Grizz approaches, complimenting her moves for a broken toy, a comment that does not sit well with our mysterious doll. Later, Cool laments that they still have no answers about her past. She tells him she remembered a vision of a man who called her Annika. Cool smiles, agreeing that the name suits her. Annika then asks him to explain what a battle doll is. He starts with the basics, comparing them to simple service models, but explains a genius engineer created a core that could manipulate anima, a word that means absolutely nothing to her. So Cool prepares to give her the full, unabridged lecture. He describes anima as the energy that flows through the world, a life force that connects every living thing. And without it, everything would simply cease to exist. He explains that all humans have an anima center, a way to tap into this power. But that all changed with the creation of dolls, autonomous beings that could draw upon and manipulate their summoner's anima. They could take that raw life force, distorting it, and unleash it with devastating power, a system that lets anyone wield incredible power, provided they're rich and lucky. Annika puts the pieces together, asking if she's a battle doll. Cool gives it a moment of very serious, dramatic thought, before completely shutting her down with a confident smile. He points to her core, telling her she's running on Stone Age tech. Annika asks a simple question: What if they just swap her core? But Cool explains that it's not that simple, as cores need to be compatible. He describes the explosive results of trying to retrofit a service doll. The truth is, the secrets of battle cores are known only to a select few. Annika seems to understand, her hopes slightly dashed. But Cool is still puzzled by her existence, wondering why she was created and then abandoned. He suggests they go talk to Eni, admitting she's a good sounding board. Annika observes that he cares deeply for his sister, only helping because she asked. Cool explains that Eni can't go out much, so he tries to do what he can for her. Annika has a sudden and completely wrong epiphany, which Cool quickly denies. As they approach the workshop, Cool notices the door is already open. He pushes it open, calling out for Eni. But his face contorts in sudden, abject horror. He finds Eni unconscious, hanging limply in the doorway. Annika can only stare, asking what's wrong with her. Cool catches her, desperately trying to wake her up. Even her small robot companion cries out in distress. His mind flashes back to a frustrating conversation with a doctor, who admitted they lacked the resources to properly diagnose her condition. The only place with answers, they said, was in the capital. The doctor explains that a cure exists, but it comes with a heavy price. Cool cuts straight to the point, asking for the exact amount they need. The doctor tries to deflect, talking about complex factors and considerations. But Cool demands a number because complex factors don't pay the bills. Later, the doctor departs, leaving the family with their impossible burden. Cool sits alone, crushed by the weight of his own powerlessness. A woman approaches him, her face etched with a quiet apology. He breaks down, blaming himself and his workshop for Eni's collapse. She listens with a pained expression, knowing his guilt is misplaced, and reminds him that he was the one who saved her, not the one who hurt her. Her words cut through his guilt, a small comfort in the storm. Later, they sit in silence under the fading light. She wishes aloud that his father was still with them, not for answers, but for the strength to keep smiling through the pain. And in that moment, Cool's grief hardens into resolve. Back at the workshop, the hours tick by. Annika waits, wondering where he's gone, until the door finally creaks open. She rushes to him, demanding to know how Eni is. He delivers the grim news: their only hope lies in the capital. Annika tries to simplify the problem, but Cool knows it's not that easy. He slams his fist in frustration, his anger finally boiling over. Annika can only watch, taken aback by his sudden rage. He explains the impossible cost of the journey, let alone the cure. Her body is slowly failing, her own life force turning against her. He describes the constant pain she hides behind a smile, a burden he feels is his to carry. He turns away, apologizing for his outburst. But then he turns back, offering a grim comparison, explaining that humans and dolls are both fragile and a nightmare to repair. With that, he walks away, leaving Annika to wonder what he's planning. Cool runs through the pouring rain, knowing his repair jobs will never be enough. He realizes there's only one way to make real money. His resolve hardens with every step. He has to become an adventurer. He storms back into the guild, demanding a quest. But his desperate pleas are met with a firm denial. His outburst attracts some very official-looking attention. A woman with a calm but firm demeanor steps in. Cool recognizes the director's doll and makes his request. The director's doll politely declines his request. Cool demands to know why, learning he's been banned from all quests. She suggests he file a formal complaint, which is always a good sign, and then offers to personally show him the door. Cool's desperation grows, knowing Eni's life is on the line. He swallows his pride, pleading for her to reconsider. He then demands to speak to the director himself, but her hand glows with a hidden power behind her back. She unleashes a blast of energy, sending him flying backwards. Cool can only stare in shock as he's thrown across the room. She slams him onto a desk with overwhelming force. A nearby guild member can only stare, wondering what's happening. Her foot plants firmly on the ground, a symbol of her authority. She pins him down, questioning his right to even dream of being an adventurer. But Cool grits his teeth, knowing he hasn't even shown his true skills. The doll threatens to break his prosthetic arm, calling it a liability. She tells him he'd be nothing but damaged goods, powerless to help anyone. But her words only seem to fuel his defiance. He roars that he knows someone who is powerless but fights every day, and if he can't do the same for her, he deserves to die. His raw desperation seems to catch her completely off guard. Her cold demeanor finally cracks just for a moment. Cool turns and walks out, leaving his words hanging in the air. The doll watches him go, admitting that for a second, the boy's desperate fury had genuinely unnerved her, but she quickly dismisses the thought as her imagination. She orders a guild member to clean up the mess Cool left behind. Just as something on the cluttered desk catches her attention, she picks up a sheet of paper, her eyes widening in disbelief. She can't believe what she's seeing, wondering if he was responsible. Meanwhile, Annika is stunned by Cool's brand new insane plan. He tells her his plan with a wild, desperate grin. They're going on a quest, whether the guild likes it or not. Sometime later, they travel through a frozen, moonlit wilderness. He offers her a chance to turn back, but she reminds him their fates are linked. Cool scoffs, saying he'd be a fool not to bring the girl who fought a battle doll unarmed. She coldly calculates her own expendability, leaving Cool to insist that's not what he meant. Annika questions if the risk is worth it, wondering if there are other ways. But Cool explains a quest is their only shot at a quick payout, because Annie is running out of time and he has no other choice. They finally arrive at a massive cliff face, a dark cave looming before them. Annika hesitates, weighing the unknown dangers against her own untested power. But Cool is already at the dungeon entrance, impatient to get started. She wonders if his confidence is bravery or just a complete lack of brain cells. A small smile plays on her lips. She decides that maybe his brand of stupid is a strength and follows him in. Cool activates a portable light source, illuminating the dark, frozen passage ahead. She asks about the mission, only to learn the details are basically, go in and get stuff. She then questions the glowing blade he provided her. Cool assures her it's fine for a C-rank quest and that he has other plans in mind. Annika questions the wisdom of trusting a last-minute prototype, but they're already being watched by something in the dark. Cool just waves off her concern, saying they probably won't need it. He's confident the creatures here won't pose much of a threat, but Annika can't shake a deep sense of foreboding. They soon come to a massive skull-shaped fork in the road. Cool's attention is drawn to a strange, eye-like object on the wall, and his first instinct, naturally, is to poke it. Annika quickly grabs his arm, stopping him just in time. But it's too late. He's already plucked it from the wall as she screams for him to turn around. Cool asks what's wrong, completely oblivious to the danger, until he finally follows her gaze, his face draining of color. He drops his light, the sound echoing in the sudden silence. Because the walls aren't made of stone. They're made of eyes. Hundreds of them, all staring back with an unnerving focus. Cool can only stare, realizing the entire cavern is alive. And as a single wing unfurls from the wall, he recognizes the horrifying creature it belongs to. A massive swarm of man-eyed bats descends upon them, drawn to their life force. And our boy realizes this C-rank quest just got a serious promotion. Cool screams for Annika to watch out as the swarm descends. But Annika is already focused, her hand tightening on the glowing blade. She moves with an instinct she didn't know she had, the weapon feeling like an extension of her arm. But even as she cuts through the horde, she feels something is wrong. A cry of pain snaps her back to reality as Cool is overwhelmed. The creatures swarm him, drawn to his life force. Her eyes widen in alarm, a sudden realization dawning. She pivots and rushes to his side without a second thought. But her blade meets an unseen force, stopping her dead in her tracks. It's Cool, his prosthetic arm locked around her sword. He tells her they're hopelessly outnumbered, and that their only chance is to wipe them out at once. With a grimace, he decides to use a weapon he'd hoped to save. He hurls a small disc into the heart of the swarm. The device emits a high-pitched beep, drawing the bats in. It spins wildly, its core glowing with unstable energy. As a timer rapidly counts down to 0, Cool screams for Annika to get down, now. The gadget crackles, ready to detonate, and unleashes a massive electrical blast, frying the entire horde. The smoke clears, leaving only silence in its wake. Annika clutches her chest, feeling the strain on her core. Cool checks on her, trying to brush off the close call. She explains the bats were feeding on his anima, nearly severing their link, which makes them wonder what could have drawn the swarm here. Cool realizes there must be a powerful anima source nearby, which, in a dungeon, is generally not a good sign. But even before she asks, he feels a strange certainty. He points to a single path, much to Annika's confusion. He can't explain it, but he knows they're on the right track. He knows that whatever lies ahead will change his life forever. The tunnel opens into a vast, subterranean cavern, where a crystalline spire rises from the dark water, promising to make his old life a distant memory. They stand at the edge, taking in the impossible sight. Annika realizes this is the source of her deep unease. Cool points to a figure standing atop the distant spire, a figure holding a small, impossibly bright gem. Annika wonders if that's what drew the bats here. Cool agrees, theorizing it's a powerful anima source, but he knows an artifact this strong would have serious defenses. With his mind made up, he steps towards the edge. Annika asks for the plan, ready for his command. He glances back, deciding it looks safe enough. Famous last words. She offers to retrieve the gem, but Cool tells her to stay put. He explains the gem's unknown energy could be dangerous for a doll. Plus, she's their best line of defense if things go wrong. He asks her to watch his back with a confident smile. Annika can only watch, her expression filled with concern. She agrees, promising to protect him no matter what. Meanwhile, back at the guild, the rain continues to fall. The director's doll, Kalia, is buried in paperwork. She laments her workload when a knock interrupts her thoughts. A young staffer enters, asking permission to speak. She confirms Kalia's suspicion. A quest form is missing. Kalia knows Cool took it, but assumes it's just a C-rank quest. But her assistant explains there's a serious complication. Kalia's calm demeanor begins to crack as she asks for details. The staffer reveals the dungeon's difficulty was misprinted. A fact Cool is learning as he asks if this isn't a C-class quest after all. The staffer explains the quest was only C-class because of the assignment. But in reality, the target was far more dangerous. It's an S-class dungeon, a death sentence for an unlicensed kid. As he gets closer, Cool notices something strange. The figure on the spire looks like she's in mourning. Kalia slams her desk, the full weight of the mistake crashing down. She screams for a party, knowing they might already be too late. Annika can only watch from afar, a sense of dread growing. Cool finally reaches the artifact, its power radiating outwards. But the pressure is suffocating, his own body refusing to obey. He pushes through the crushing force, his hand reaching for the prize. His resolve hardens, knowing he can't turn back now. With a final surge of strength, he snatches the gem from the air, and the entire crystalline spire shatters, plunging him into the water. Annika watches the chaos, her eyes scanning the dark surface. Cool breaks through the waves, calling out to see if she spotted anything. He realizes the pressure is gone and the amulet has transformed. She helps him to his feet as he jokes about their good luck, but their celebration is cut short as something massive rises from the depths. They turn just in time to see the dungeon's true guardian emerge. The stone figure on the spire begins to crack. Its face shatters, weeping tears of crimson light. The entire structure crumbles into the dark water below, revealing a hidden passage in the cavern wall. The collapse ends in a massive, blinding explosion. Cool and Annika can only watch as the dust settles, but something else rises from the churning depths. Annika asks what it is, but Cool is fresh out of ideas. A monstrous creature fueled by a sickly green energy emerges and slips back into the water, ready to hunt. The creature lunges from the depths, a blur of green fury, its spectral form screaming with an unholy rage. Annika doesn't hesitate, drawing her blade to meet the threat. She cuts into the beast with a flash of blue light, her eyes burning with a cold, focused intensity. But her attack has absolutely no effect on the creature. Cool recognizes the monster from legend, a witch's shade. A creature so powerful that even top adventurers avoid it. And now one of them is staring them right in the face. But Cool still holds the key to this whole mess in his hand. He realizes with dawning horror that the creature wants the amulet. A look of grim determination crosses his face. He dodges as the shade lunges with a spectral shriek. Knowing physical attacks are useless, he reaches for a new plan. It's time to see how this thing handles explosives. A handful of small discs fly towards the beast, beeping ominously. They detonate in a massive fiery explosion. Cool can only watch, hoping his gamble paid off. As the smoke clears, the cavern falls silent. But the shade simply reforms, because of course it does. Cool can only shout in frustration as the creature reforms. It slams into him with overwhelming force, its spectral claws closing around his throat. The monster whispers, obsessed with the amulet in his hand. Cool is stunned, realizing the creature can actually speak. But Annika leaps into the fray, her blade held high. She brings the weapon down with a flash of blue light, slicing directly through the shade's spectral form. The creature staggers back, its body flickering violently. Cool hands her the amulet, asking how she knew it would work. Annika admits she just hoped for the best, much to Cool's disbelief. But the shade is already reforming, its wounds closing instantly. Cool realizes the creature was trying to drain his anima, which might be its only weakness. But Annika points out that's an observation, not a plan. Cool realizes the creature isn't just using anima, it's made of it. And in that moment, a new, desperate idea sparks in his mind. He turns to Annika, telling her it's time to use their last resort. She can only stare, wondering what he's talking about. Meanwhile, the shade continues its mournful wail, obsessed with what was taken. Its rage builds, ready to unleash another devastating attack. The shade lunges, its spectral form filling the cavern. Annika dashes forward, holding the amulet like a beacon. She presents it as bait, drawing the creature's full attention. The shade's claws reach out, desperate to reclaim its prize. But Annika dodges, letting the creature's rage carry it past her. She puts her faith in Cool, hoping his insane plan will work. Cool watches intently, needing her to buy him just a little more time. The shade whips around, swiping at her with its spectral tail. Annika stands her ground, ready for the next assault. She dodges again, weaving through a flurry of deadly strikes. The amulet glows, a beacon against the darkness. She weaves through the shade's furious attacks, dodging each spectral blade by a hair's breadth. The cavern floor erupts with every missed strike. She glances back, her patience clearly wearing thin. She counters another lunge, tearing through its form, and desperately asks Cool how much longer he needs. Because while she's fighting for her life, our boy is busy with some last-minute arts and crafts, but her distraction is taking its toll as the Shade's energy begins to corrupt her. Her blade glows with a renewed energy. She cuts through the Shade's form once more. Landing with a grim, determined expression, she leaps back into the fray, refusing to back down, only for the creature to catch her blade mid-swing. The weapon begins to crack under the immense pressure, so she shatters it herself with a furious punch and continues her assault with the broken hilt. But she's reaching her limit, her energy fading fast. Just as Cool's insane plan finally comes to life, a plan he'd cobbled together just before they left. One that Annika was not entirely sold on. He presents his new creation, asking her to take a look. She's unimpressed, comparing it to his other gadgets. A comment that Cool takes very, very personally. He explains he's repurposed a service doll's core crystal, combining it with an explosive to disrupt anima attacks. He's certain this will give them the edge they need. But Annika offers a much more realistic assessment of their chances. He seems genuinely surprised by her observation. Cool admits he's terrified, his hands numb and his heart pounding. He tells her his legs haven't stopped shaking since he left the guild. Annika listens, her expression unreadable. But he steels himself, remembering that Ini is counting on him. He knows there's no point in hesitating when this is his only option. Annika seems to accept his desperate resolve. He explains the one downside to his plan. He needs her to buy him time while he charges the device. And when he gives the word, she needs to run, because his ultimate weapon is, of course, also a bomb. With the plan set, Annika launches into action, dashing headfirst towards the towering spectral monster. The Shade shifts into a deadlier form, its rage growing. Annika dodges a massive blade of pure malice. Her eyes burn with focus, but the strain is starting to show. She continues to weave through the storm of spectral energy. She screams for an update because Cool's timing is, as always, impeccable. He pours his own life force into the device, knowing it has to be enough. He knows they're out of time and calls out her name. With a final roar, he declares the weapon is ready, just as the Shade lands a solid blow, sending Annika flying. Cool rises, his ultimate weapon ready to be unleashed. But Cool realizes something is terribly wrong. The timer is broken, damaged when his belt fell earlier. Annika screams for him to throw it, but he explains it's a manual detonation now, which gives our boy a brand new, terrible idea. He throws the device not at the Shade, but onto the ground. It lands with a thud, its core pulsing with unstable energy. Cool prepares to deliver the final, percussive trigger. He channels his own anima into his prosthetic arm, ready to detonate the bomb with a single punch. Annika can only watch, standing dangerously close to the blast zone. But she refuses to be a bystander, dashing towards the spectral beast. Cool unloads a flurry of blows into the creature's form, trying to create an opening to detonate the disruptor. But the Shade suddenly stops its relentless assault. Cool can only wonder why it's frozen in place, because Annika is holding the amulet aloft, its light flaring brightly. Cool screams her name, completely baffled by her actions. Apparently, her plan is slightly more nuanced than punch the bomb. The Shade's eyes narrow, its focus locked on the prize. And it lunges forward, ignoring Cool completely. Annika stands firm, her eyes burning with a defiant resolve. Cool realizes her insane plan is to detonate the amulet herself. She throws his own desperate philosophy back in his face. He screams for her to stop, his brilliant idea backfiring spectacularly. But she insists that this is their only option. With a quiet resolve, she closes her eyes, ready for the end. The amulet erupts in a blinding torrent of golden light. Cool can only watch, his face a mask of rage and despair. Annika is completely consumed by the overwhelming energy, leaving him alone in the blast's wake, facing a looming shadow. Cool lies on the frozen ground, the blast having knocked him out. He slowly comes to, his mind a complete blank. His first thought is of Annika, whom he sees across the cavern. He rushes to her side, calling her crazy for her reckless plan. He's just relieved that it worked and that she's mostly in one piece. But her first word is a quiet, accusatory question. Cool's relief turns to horror as he finally gets a closer look. The explosion has torn away her skin, revealing the machine beneath. She asks if he saw her as nothing more than a disposable tool. Cool can only stammer, promising that he can fix her. But his words are cut short as a strange vision consumes him. He's thrown back into a memory, a world of shadow and fear. A familiar voice calls his name, pulling him deeper into the past. He sees a vision of Ini, weak and in pain. She begs him to stop the hurt, a plea he couldn't answer. The memory twists, blending the past with his present failure. He remembers the woman who saved him, her words like daggers. She turns her back on him, leaving him to face his father. A memory of the man, burned and broken by failure. a trauma that has haunted Cool ever since. Cool struggles against the vision, realizing it's all in his head. Something is using his memories, his greatest failures, against him. He snaps back to reality, his eyes glowing as he realizes the shade is still alive. The creature's spectral energy swirls around him, a relentless psychic assault. Across the cavern, Annika sits motionless against the wall. The blast has left her damaged and seemingly offline. But in his mind, the ghosts of his past hold him down, as the shade itself appears ready to claim him. But then Annika appears in the vision, her eyes glowing with a sickly green light, and plunges her blade directly into his chest. Cool gasps, the phantom pain feeling terrifyingly real. He collapses to the ground, the vision of Annika's betrayal burning in his mind. The shade taunts him, wearing the faces of everyone he's ever failed. He realizes this isn't just an illusion. The creature is trying to kill him from the inside out. He's dragged deeper into the darkness of his own mind, and forced to kneel before a new, mysterious figure. A younger version of himself who judges him with a single, cutting word. Cool can only stare, asking this ghost of his past what he's doing here. The boy simply states that Cool was the one who called him. Cool pleads for help, wondering if this is his own subconscious fighting back. The boy asks how he can do anything when he's so useless. But Cool argues back, saying he'll build a stronger arm and adapt. The ghost of his past just scoffs, saying it all ends in failure anyway. He asks why Cool even bothers trying so hard. Cool roars back, calling his younger self a spineless brat. He sees through the facade of not caring, calling it a lie. He calls the boy what he truly is, a coward, and he'd rather die here than accept defeat like his past self did. He reminds the boy that he still has one good hand, and realizes he was so focused on failure, he missed the truth. He challenges the ghost of his past to show him the truth he's been hiding. The boy can only voice his deepest fear, the fear of letting everyone down. But Cool meets that fear with an unshakable certainty, a truth his younger self seems to finally accept. Because when you're out of options, you fight. The ghost of his past finally finds a moment of peace, and channels that resolve into a single point of light, a power that erupts from the depths of his own mind. Back in the real world, Cool lies still on the cavern floor, until his eyes snap open, blazing with a terrifying new power. He sees the source of the shade's power, the amulet Annika dropped. He knows he has to destroy it to end this fight for good. But the shade isn't about to let him get a second chance. He roars, channeling all his newfound resolve into his arm, and slams his fist directly into the amulet's core. The artifact shatters, unleashing a torrent of raw power. He's caught in the heart of the explosion, bracing himself against the searing wave of energy. Turns out punching a magic nuke has its downsides. But as the light fades, he sees his desperate gamble paid off. The shade's core flickers for a final, agonizing moment. Cool is thrown back by the force of his own desperate punch. The amulet shatters into a million pieces of light, and the resulting explosion tears through the cavern. Annika can only watch as the shockwave washes over her. But the energy seems to flow into her, igniting her core with a new light. She takes a breath, her system slowly coming back online. Meanwhile, the guild's rescue party has finally arrived at the dungeon entrance. One of them complains about having to save some reckless kid who got himself killed. He even bets they'll only find a body, a wager the leader quietly accepts. The rescue party's morale is, to put it mildly, not great. The leader just wants to find the body and get out of the cold. But his eyes suddenly widen as he sees something impossible. A massive crystalline structure has erupted from the dungeon's depths, and frozen within it is the spectral form of the witch's shade. Far below, at the heart of the crystal chasm, they find Cool, unconscious but miraculously alive. The leader can only wonder what happened here, his eyes drawn to Cool's glowing arm. Sometime later, in a clean, bright room, Cool finally wakes up, his ordeal seemingly over. He's greeted by Annika, who asks if he's finally awake. He asks what happened, learning they're back at the Adventurers Guild. And it's Kalia, the director's doll, who explains she had them treated. She notes they couldn't fully repair Annika's unique outer shell. Annika can only look on, her body now a patchwork of repairs. Cool immediately gets defensive, asking if this is a prison. But Kalia simply wants to know how they cleared an S-class dungeon. A revelation that catches both of them completely by surprise. Cool tries to play it cool, admitting he can't take all the credit. He explains the only reason they survived was because of Annika. Kalia reveals the massive ice structure was Annika's doing. Annika can hardly believe it, wondering how she could summon ice. Cool just smiles, telling her she's not so broken after all. He theorizes the gem's explosion supercharged her core, a very scientific explanation. But Kalia knows that level of anima manipulation is something only the strongest battle dolls can achieve. She changes the subject, asking Cool to confirm what they fought. He describes the witch's shade and its ability to speak, which shocks her. Kalia explains that shades are born from memories and emotions, a fact that seems to strike a deep chord with the amnesiac Annika. Cool theorizes the shade was protecting the statue, a memory of a fallen soldier. Kalia explains that a shade with that level of intelligence must have been created by an incredibly powerful artifact. Cool's eyes light up, realizing the shattered gem might be worth a fortune. But Kalia crushes his dreams, explaining that broken artifacts get you nothing. So much for that get-rich-quick scheme. He tries to laugh it off, admitting he probably shouldn't have punched it. Annika can only watch, her expression unreadable. He figures he can just pry the shard out, but Kalia warns him it's still dangerous, leaving Cool to wonder if he has to build a whole new arm. Kalia explains that while the guild can help, it requires a full report. But then she has a sudden idea, a potential outside expert. Cool and Annika can only wait, wondering who she means. He asks for a name, his curiosity piqued. Kalia describes a researcher whose skills surpass the guild's, but warns she's a bit volatile. She offers to arrange a meeting despite the risks. Cool is stunned by her sudden offer of assistance. Annika confronts her, asking why she's helping after attacking them before. Kalia admits her first instinct was to have them arrested for theft, but something clearly changed her mind as a mysterious tower looms in the distance. A flashback reveals the moment the rescue party found Cool. The leader reports back to the guild director, calling the boy pathetic. She orders him to the infirmary, only to learn they left Annika behind, a detail that seems to catch her completely off guard. But Cool wasn't unconscious for the whole trip, fighting to go back for her. The rescue leader scolds him, telling him to worry about his own life. But Cool's resolve only hardens, his grip tightening on the stretcher. He throws himself to the ground with a heavy thud and tries to crawl back, insisting he can't abandon the one who saved him. His desperate plea is met only with annoyance from the rescue team. The rescue leader can only stare, stunned by the boy's defiance. Cool roars for them to get out of his way, his eyes blazing with fury. For a moment, the man is genuinely terrified by the kid's intensity, but he quickly reasserts his authority with a swift punch, sending Cool back to the ground as Kalia watches the scene unfold. Her expression remains cold and completely unreadable. The leader tries to laugh it off, calling Cool all talk. But Kalia cuts him off, ordering him to go back for the doll. She repeats the command with a glare that could melt steel, leaving the entire rescue party completely stunned by her decision. The rescue team scrambles to follow her orders, and Kalia is left to wonder at the boy who would risk his life for a doll. Back in the present, Annika asks why she had a change of heart. Kalia explains that reporting them would also mean admitting her own failure. Cool just smirks, realizing it's all just self-preservation. Annika then asks if they can trust this specialist Kalia mentioned, but Cool just flashes a grin, confident in his people skills. Famous last words. Elsewhere, in a cold and lonely workshop, a nervous messenger tries to deliver a message from the guild, but the volatile specialist is clearly not interested in visitors. She makes it clear there are two things she hates: adventurers and dolls. So Cool and Annika set off to meet this specialist. With a very reluctant and very vocal guild escort, Cool immediately suggests a map would have been a better choice. Annika can only watch their familiar bickering. She then asks if the two of them are lovers, a suggestion that is met with absolute unified horror. The escort explains they're just childhood acquaintances. She then scolds him for his reckless dungeon dive, but Cool just smiles, giving Annika all the credit for his survival. Annika realizes that even by accident she was useful, but Cool is just frustrated that his plan failed. Momo watches him, her expression softening with concern. Before snapping back to her usual energetic self, Cool can't help but crack a small smile as she leads the way, shouting for them to move faster. Annika's logical mind comes to a very different conclusion. After a long and very loud journey, they finally arrive at their destination, a place Cool is certain belongs to a mountain hermit. He wonders why he's never heard of anyone living out here. The door to the workshop slowly creaks open. They're greeted by a nervous apprentice named Leon, who tries to turn them away. But Momo is clearly not in the mood for excuses. She barges in on official business as Cool explains his friend has zero chill. But the apprentice blocks their path, insisting the doll has to stay outside. Annika asks if she's done something to offend him. He frantically explains his master despises dolls and would have his head for letting one in. Annika calmly offers to wait outside, much to Cool's surprise. She reminds him that his arm is the priority, and her presence isn't necessary. Cool considers her surprisingly logical offer. He finally agrees, much to the apprentice's relief. He tells her to stay close, promising he won't be long. So Annika waits patiently outside the strange workshop. Inside, Cool gets his first look at the specialist's forge. He notes the place is clearly set up to handle anima artifacts. But the craftsmanship is surprisingly shoddy, a fact our resident junk expert immediately notices. Meanwhile, Annika is lost in thought, pondering her own nature. She still can't understand how she summoned ice in the dungeon, and wonders if this power was hidden inside her all along. She decides to give her newfound power another try. Inside, the apprentice asks Cool to explain the problem. Cool shows him the gem shard, asking for a safe removal. He agrees to let the boy take a look, figuring it can't hurt. Outside, Annika tries to focus her anima, attempting to summon her power, but her concentration is broken by a sudden noise. She stumbles backwards, losing her balance completely, and lands ungracefully on the ground. So much for practice. She wonders how she managed it before, the memory just out of reach. Meanwhile, Leon begins his careful inspection of Cool's arm. The apprentice is immediately fascinated by the artifact in Cool's arm. He identifies it as an ancient relic, forged in pure anima. Cool's casual mention of a witch's shade leaves the boy stunned. Outside, Annika tries to figure out how to access her new abilities. She closes her eyes, trying to recall the feeling of her first activation. A memory of Cool's touch, a current of life-giving energy. She focuses on that moment, trying to recreate the sensation, and a spark of blue light ignites within her core. Meanwhile, the workshop's master is taking a well-deserved nap, until an unfamiliar scent rouses her from her sleep. Inside, Leon's inspection is cut short as the gem shard erupts with power. The artifact flares to life, its energy surging through Cool's arm. He screams for the others to stay back as the workshop is flooded with light. He recognizes the searing pain from his fight with the shade. At that exact moment, Annika's core begins to glow with a familiar blue light. She smiles, realizing her experiment was a success. Cool, however, is having a slightly different experience. He knows he has to get the shard out of his arm now. He stumbles out of the workshop, desperate to escape the pain. Annika turns, her own power flaring just as Cool bursts through the door. The workshop door erupts in a massive explosion. Annika can only scream his name in alarm. The blast sends everyone flying, as Leon explains the shard just went critical, and the commotion finally wakes up the workshop's master, who seems less concerned about her guests and more about her missing door. But Cool is somewhere else entirely, lost in a dark, empty void. He can only stare at the endless expanse, wondering what he's seeing. He walks forward into a blinding, infinite light. A strange sensation washes over him, a feeling he can't quite place. But as he looks to the side, he feels a sense of peace. He reaches out, drawn to the light for reasons he can't explain. But the orb of light suddenly expands, pulling him in with an irresistible force. He braces himself against the blinding energy, fighting to stay in the darkness of his own mind. But his hand is pulled into the unknown, followed by the rest of his body. And then, the light simply vanishes. He's violently thrown back into the real world. Cool coughs, the taste of blood filling his mouth. He struggles to his knees, wondering what just happened, and looks up to see a very concerned and very new, welcoming party. The workshop's master seems less concerned with his health and more with her broken door. Cool just wants to know who they are and what that horrible smell is. The specialist explains it's her special home brew, a taste he should be honored to receive. He begins to seriously question the guild's definition of expert, a question that's quickly forgotten as she gets way too close for comfort. Her playful demeanor vanishes in an instant, as her eyes lock onto the glowing shard in his arm, and suddenly she seems to understand everything. She takes a long drink, noting the massive anima release. Her eyes then fall on Annika, recognizing her as a doll, and suddenly, her expression sours with understanding. Cool asks if she knows what just happened to him, but she just scolds them for meddling with powers beyond their grasp. His friends worry, but Cool is already forming a new plan. He decides to try a little reverse psychology, a tactic that works a little too well. The three of them share a triumphant smirk, their trap sprung. The specialist then points a finger not at Cool but at Annika. Cool asks Annika if she knows what happened, but she's just as lost as he is. The specialist immediately calls her out, accusing her of trying to manipulate anima. She correctly deduces Annika tried to summon her element without a craft, a term Annika doesn't recognize. The specialist groans, complaining that dolls make everything needlessly complicated. She points out that even her apprentice knows the basics, as Leon snaps to attention. And so begins a very impromptu lecture on the 3 stages of anima manipulation. The first stage is summoning, drawing power from one's core. Leon explains it's the most common stage, used to power everyday technology. The second stage is transformation, converting that energy into an element, a rare trait that very few humans possess naturally. But recent innovations in doll technology made this power more accessible. Momo realizes Grizz's element is fire, and Kalia's is water. Annika confirms her own is ice, but wonders what that has to do with Cool. The specialist explains it's because she skipped the third stage. The final stage, crafting, uses a tool to express an element, a power shaped by the manipulator's own life and experiences. Cool realizes their weapons weren't just for show. She explains that a raw release of power is incredibly draining, and Annika tried to brute force her ice manipulation without one. This put a massive strain on Cool's own anima center. Cool's eyes widen as he connects the dots to the shard. The specialist confirms it, calling the artifact a massive battery of pure anima. When Annika drew too much power, he instinctively tapped into the shard, causing the overload. Cool finally understands why a witch's shade would guard such a tiny fragment. Annika's face falls as the truth sinks in. She realizes with dawning horror that this was all her fault. Momo asks if they can sell it, but the specialist offers a grim warning. Removing it would kill him. She explains the shard has now bonded directly to his anima center. Severing that connection would shatter his life force, killing him instantly. Cool panics, warning everyone to stay away, as the specialist ponders a final missing piece of the puzzle. She wonders how Cool's body accepted the foreign anima, as our boy has a complete meltdown. But Annika can only blame herself for his predicament. She explains that a doll's only value is in its purpose, and a battle doll without its craft is nothing more than a failure. The specialist listens, her expression unreadable. She admits she'd always thought of dolls as mindless machines, but explains that feeling lost is a very human experience. She then turns, telling them to follow her back to the workshop. With a smile, she offers a simple solution. If Annika has lost her purpose, then they will simply have to find her a new one. The specialist leads them into the forge, ready to get to work. She tells Annika to pick a weapon, but Annika wonders how she can choose without knowing her past. Wisp tells her to forget who she was and just choose what feels right. Her words seem to resonate with the amnesiac doll. Cool considers getting a weapon himself, though he's partial to his explosives. But the specialist tells him he already has a weapon in his hand. Cool looks down at the shard, clearly not convinced. He remembers the overwhelming power that nearly destroyed him, an experience he'd rather not repeat. Meanwhile, Momo whispers her doubts, saying she's found better gear in a junkyard. The apprentice then reveals a shocking truth. Wisp hasn't forged anything in years. Cool apologizes, but Leon confirms it's the truth. He reveals that Wisp was once a legendary adventurer herself. Cool questions this, since she seems to hate adventurers now. Leon tries to backtrack, but quickly learns that secrets are not safe here. With a sigh, he begins to tell Wisp's tragic story. She was part of a top-ranked party, crafting all their gear. One day they took a routine quest, but Wisp stayed behind. And one of her comrades never came back. He explains she blames herself, and the rise of battle dolls made her craft obsolete. She eventually gave up forging, leaving him to learn from her old work. Cool is impressed by the apprentice's story. He tells the boy he's amazing for teaching himself, a sentiment Cool can relate to. Momo, meanwhile, seems to be window shopping. Cool wonders why Wisp would help a doll after all this time. Perhaps Annika's own struggle changed the master's mind. Annika tests the feel of a strange hooked blade, but she knows the problem isn't the weapon. It's her. The blade shatters in her hand with a sharp crack. The entire workshop can only stare at the result, and Momo realizes she picked a bad time to test the crossbow. Cool lunges to disarm Momo after her little incident. Wisp brushes it off, but her eyes catch something Annika dropped. Cool's attention is drawn to a strange object on the floor. He picks it up, revealing what looks like a hilt without a blade. A flicker of recognition crosses his face as he examines it, but Wisp suddenly screams for him to stop. Her expression shifts from mentor to something far more dangerous. She warns him to put the hilt down if he knows what's good for him. Cool tries to play it cool, his mind racing with possibilities. But their tense standoff is interrupted by an unseen arrival. A lone figure stumbles into the doorway, grabbing everyone's attention. It's two adventurers, one carrying his wounded comrade as he begs for help. They're brought inside, the workshop quickly turning into a makeshift infirmary. Cool asks what happened, but the survivor can only stare, his eyes hollow. He explains that it was supposed to be a simple quest, a mission to clear out some invasive creatures from a nearby mountain den, but he describes being overwhelmed, watching his friends get torn apart. The memory is still fresh, the sounds of the fight echoing in his mind. A brutal flashback reveals a desperate battle against a horde of monstrous beasts. Wisp listens with a grim expression as the man asks why he can still hear their screams. Wisp tries to comfort the survivor, telling him he's safe now, but he explains that his friends are still trapped on the mountain. He's consumed by guilt, admitting he was too terrified to help them. Cool looks to Annika, his resolve already hardening. Wisp can only watch, her own past failures echoing in the man's words. He tells Annika they can't wait and that it's time to move. And so, our heroes head out on another impromptu rescue mission. Back at the forge, Momo worries if they'll be all right, but Leon assures her he gave Annika a quality weapon. Yeah, I'm sure that'll solve everything. Wisp, however, realizes she made a critical mistake, forgetting to take back the mysterious hilt. She recognizes the mysterious object as the hollow blade, and realizes with dread that history is about to repeat itself. Meanwhile, Cool runs with the very same weapon tucked into his belt. He knows it's made of a highly sensitive material, perfect for crafting anima, but he worries its volatile nature might be too much for Annika to handle. His mind flashes back to the explosion that nearly destroyed her. He decides it's too risky, refusing to put her in that kind of danger again. As they race towards the mountain, Annika leads the way. They can already see the signs of a desperate battle ahead. Two lone adventurers completely surrounded by a horde of beasts. And the adventurers in trouble are none other than Grizz and his master Tappa, who's just about out of gas. Just as another massive beast lunges from the trees, Grizz knows he has to make this last shot count, unleashing a massive wave of fire at the incoming horde. The attack connects with a fiery explosion. But as the smoke begins to clear, a much larger armored beast emerges completely unscathed. Grizz can only stare in disbelief, his final gambit having failed, and he's sent flying by the creature's powerful blow. The creature, a boulder lion, snaps his weapon in two. Grizz realizes with horror his flames can't pierce its shell. Tappa tries to help, his axe bouncing uselessly off the beast. He's swatted aside with contemptuous ease, leaving his battle doll to fight the horde alone. But a new figure suddenly leaps into the fray. Tappa can only stare up in terror as the pack surrounds him. He's pinned to the ground, completely unable to move. A beast lunges, ready to deliver the final blow, and Tappa can only brace himself for the inevitable end. But a blur of motion intercepts the beast, sending it flying with a single, powerful blow. Tappa can only stare, recognizing his unlikely savior. Cool just brushes himself off, noting it was a close one. He then turns, a question forming on his lips. The two immediately start arguing, because gratitude is for other people. Meanwhile, Grizz is still pinned down by another monster, his strength fading as he holds the creature at bay. Just as Annika descends from the trees like an avenging angel, her eyes burn with focus, ready to test her new blade. She descends with a powerful slash, her new blade cutting through the air, and shatters the monster's head, freeing Grizz from its grip, only for the weapon to immediately snap, much to her confusion. Grizz can only stare up, his energy completely spent. Turns out the apprentice's best sword ever had a very short warranty, but the armored boulder lion clenches its fist, ready for another round. It lets out a furious roar, its rage now focused on the newcomers, but Grizz's eyes burn with a renewed fire. He shoves the other beast back, refusing to stay down, and launches himself at the armored monster, ready to rejoin the fight. Grizz is less than grateful for the rescue, questioning who's saving whom. He turns away, his pride clearly wounded by the interruption. Tappa, meanwhile, tries to contribute by whacking a smaller beast. He sends the creature flying with a surprisingly solid hit, but the beast just shakes it off, its eyes glowing with renewed fury. The four of them stand together, completely surrounded by the horde. The pack lets out a collective roar, ready to close in for the kill. Cool shouts a warning as the beasts begin their charge. Annika turns to Cool with a quiet apology for her broken weapon, and then leaps past him, ready to fight with what little she has left. But Cool stops her, his own plan already in motion. He holds out the mysterious hilt from the forge. Annika tells him he's just going to have to trust her, and suddenly we're thrown back 20 years into the past, where a young adventurer named Leif marvels at a masterwork. A younger Wisp just brushes off the praise with a confident smirk. Leif is captivated by the hilt's legendary transformative properties. He tests its balance as Wisp warns him to be careful, but his excitement is cut short by a frantic arrival. A man barges in, shoving Leif aside with a desperate demand. The man begs her to arm his guards, offering a ridiculous amount of money, but Wisp refuses, explaining that her party is already booked. Leif, however, sees an opportunity, noting the pay is worth 10 quests. He suggests he can handle the quests while she takes the commission, giving him a chance to test the hollow blade. Wisp considers his argument, her resolve beginning to waver. She finally agrees, much to the merchant's delight. Wisp places a hand on Leif's shoulder, telling him to be careful. He just smiles, reassuring her that her weapons will keep them safe. But she can only watch him go, her expression filled with a quiet dread. The bells toll over the city, marking the end of a fateful day. Wisp is interrupted by news of the adventurers' return. She notes their quick arrival, assuming the quest was easy. She decides to join them for the next one, just to prove she's still needed. But outside, she's met with a crowd of hushed, somber whispers. She shoves her way through, demanding to know what's happened, and is met with a grim, blood-soaked scene. Her eyes widen in absolute horror, because Leif has been brought back broken and lifeless. She rushes forward, demanding answers from his surviving comrade. But the doll can only look on, his expression a mask of quiet grief. The survivor explains they were too afraid to touch the hilt, not after what it did to their friend. The doll who was with him could only watch in silence, Wisp opens the bag to find the blood-stained weapon, a memory of her, alone in the forge, crushed by her failure. She explains they had no idea what hollow steel was capable of. A metal that reflects anima, but rebounds if the user isn't focused, so basically a death stick. She knows that weapon could destroy Annika instantly, but Annika simply tells Cool to trust her. Back in the present, the four of them are surrounded, their backs against the wall. Cool knows the hollow steel is a double-edged sword, ready to turn on her at the slightest doubt. She asks why he'd let her sacrifice herself before, a question hanging heavy in the air. But Cool's expression hardens, his decision already made. Just as the Boulder Lion lunges, ready to end the conversation, the entire pack closes in, their numbers overwhelming. Cool screams that they just need to buy a little more time. He tells the others to hold the line, putting all his faith in Annika. Tappa, ever the team player, questions trusting their lives to a broken doll. That word echoes as Annika grips the hilt, its power flaring to life. She stands firm, ready to prove just how wrong he is. The words echo in her mind. Damaged. Worthless. But she's tired of being defined by her failures. Meanwhile, Tappa faces down another charging beast, only for the ground to erupt in a wall of stone. The creature leaps over its own makeshift barricade, firing a volley of sharpened rocks from above. He realizes with horror it can craft Earth itself. Guess his wallet can't buy him out of this one. Just then, Cool feels a sharp, throbbing pain in his arm. The shard flares to life, its power surging once more. Grizz desperately holds the line, his scythe a blur of motion. He knows a battle doll's life is often short, but even he thinks these odds are just ridiculous. Another beast lunges, threatening to overwhelm him completely. Just as Annika appears, a spectral form behind her as she blocks the blow. A massive wave of ice erupts from her, freezing the horde solid. She stares down the frozen monster, her power finally unleashed. Tappa and Grizz can only stare, stunned by the sudden turn of events. The entire battlefield is transformed into a forest of jagged ice. And from the hilt, Annika crafts her true weapon, the hollow blade. Annika stares at the ice blade, realizing this is her true craft. It feels perfectly balanced, unlike any other weapon she's held, as if it was always meant to be an extension of her. Cool cheers, triumphant that his insane plan actually worked. Tappa, however, is utterly baffled by the second-rate doll's power. Grizz can only stare, remembering she couldn't manipulate Anima days ago, and now she commands a massive wall of ice with a single swing. His face contorts in disbelief, clearly not expecting this. The entire horde is frozen solid, a testament to her unleashed power, but the ground trembles, as one beast still struggles to break free. Cool watches in shock as a lone beast escapes her icy prison, but something about the scene just doesn't add up. He knows anima-wielding creatures only use their powers as a last resort. Just as the entire battlefield begins to rumble violently, Cool realizes this isn't an earthquake, but something much bigger. The ground cracks and splits beneath their feet. A massive cliff face erupts, separating the two teams. Tappa can only stare down, wondering when he signed up for this, as the Boulder Lion reveals its true, colossal form. Cool can only stare, realizing this quest just got another upgrade. He identifies the creature as a summit golem, a Leviathan-class beast that lends its power to the mountain's inhabitants. Cool realizes the lions were borrowing its anima to craft Earth. Tappa, meanwhile, is having a very reasonable, pants-wetting panic attack. The golem raises its massive fist, ready to strike, and brings it down with earth-shattering force. Cool can only brace himself against the flying debris. He calls out for Annika, his voice lost in the chaos. But she's already by his side, explaining they can't outrun it, which means their only option is to fight. Annika raises her new blade, its icy form crackling with power. She charges forward, creating a massive bridge of ice to meet the golem. But the colossal beast simply rumbles, unimpressed by her display. It shatters her icecraft with a single contemptuous blow. Annika can only watch, realizing her new power isn't enough. Cool knows it's time for his own brand of technical support. He leaps into the air, unleashing a volley of his favorite gadgets. The small discs pepper the golem's rocky hide and detonate in a massive, coordinated explosion. But the creature emerges from the smoke completely unscathed. But Cool's mechanic's eye spots a single crucial detail. The golem instinctively protected its neck, revealing its anima core. He knows if they can focus their attacks there, they might just have a chance. He screams for Annika, putting their entire plan in her hands. She stands ready, her ice blade crackling with focused power. But the golem's attack is met by a sudden crescent of flame. Annika can only stare, wondering where the fire came from. It's Grizz, explaining he hates being in anyone's debt. And with this one last shot, he considers that debt repaid. Annika screams his name as the golem's hand descends to crush him. The golem's fist comes down with crushing finality. and Grizz is shattered, his body sent flying in pieces. Cool and Toppa can only watch in stunned horror. Cool immediately rushes forward, screaming that they have to help. But Toppa is frozen, his faith in his ultimate weapon completely broken. He desperately tries to summon a new doll, anything to save himself, only to be met with the most terrifying message of all: insufficient funds. His weapon falls from his grasp, his last hope gone, and in a fit of despair, he begins to shed his expensive armor. Cool can only stare, baffled by this sudden, pathetic surrender. Cool can only watch as Toppa makes a mad dash for the hills. The coward screams that his life is simply worth more than theirs. Cool just lies there, completely done with this entire situation, as Toppa scrambles up the cliff face, leaving them all behind. A move that surprises absolutely no one. Grizz feels his anima link fading, knowing this is the end. His shattered body lies broken on the battlefield. But Cool refuses to give up, shouting that he can still be fixed. He runs towards the fallen doll as the golem looms over them. But Annika stands ready, her eyes burning with a cold resolve. She unleashes a massive blade of ice, aiming for the golem's glowing core, but the beast shatters her attack with ease. Annika realizes her ice can't pierce its defenses. Cool ignores the golem, rushing to the fallen doll. He reaches Grizz's shattered body, calling out his name, and tries a bit of emergency first aid, mechanic style. His core flickers, a faint spark of life returning. Cool breathes a sigh of relief, glad he's still functional. A sentiment Grizz does not seem to share. Grizz admits he's nothing but damaged goods now, but Cool confidently says he can fix anything. The broken doll can only stare in disbelief. He helps him up, ready to make a run for it, but their escape is immediately cut short. Because the golem is far from finished with them, it brings its fist down with earth-shattering force. Cool can only look back in terror as they flee, just as Annika leaps into the air to meet the blow. Her eyes burn with power, her blade ready to strike. She slams her blade into the ground, creating a massive wall of ice to block the blow. But the golem's immense strength begins to crack her defense. Cool breathes a sigh of relief, glad to be in one piece. Mostly, but his relief is short-lived. As he sees the crack spreading through the ice, Annika screams that their makeshift shield won't hold for long. The golem raises its fist, ready for another strike, and brings it down with earth-shattering force. The ice shatters and a crack appears on Grizz's core. Annika strains, pouring all her power into the hollow blade. But her makeshift defense is already beginning to fracture. She knows the ice is only a temporary solution, and Cool is fresh out of brilliant last-minute ideas. The golem brings its fist down for another round of applause, and the entire ice shield shatters into a million pieces, leaving them completely exposed before the colossal beast. Their time has officially run out. Cool's face hardens, knowing he has no other choice. He clenches his fist, ready to make one final, desperate move. He stands alone before the colossal mountain beast. Grizz screams at him, questioning his sanity for not running. Even Annika asks if he truly knows what he's doing. But Cool stands his ground as the golem prepares to strike. His eyes glow with a strange green light, his resolve absolute. He's pulled into a vision, reaching for a source of pure power. His hand closes around a brilliant orb of energy. He grasps the raw anima with his mind, condensing it into a single focused point. And back in reality, his arm transforms, glowing with a golden light. He meets the golem's fist with his own, unleashing all the shard's power in a single, desperate blow. The impact is absolutely deafening, as Cool's crystalline fist meets solid rock. The golem's massive hand shatters on impact. Its entire arm is blown apart by the force of the blow. The golem can only stare, its eyes glowing with disbelief. Cracks begin to spread across its rocky hide. Its chest shatters, revealing the source of its power, the golem's massive anima core, now completely exposed. The colossal beast stumbles back, its form beginning to crumble. It crashes to the ground in a shower of rock and dust. Cool can only gasp for air, the battle finally over. Annika stares, unable to believe what she just witnessed. His mind flashes back to the moment he first found his resolve. As the golem's core detonates in a blinding explosion, she realizes he drew upon the shard's power as a weapon. Cool lies on the ground, noting they're getting better at this. He even jokes that they both managed to stay conscious this time. But Annika knows the blast nearly destroyed his arm completely. His arm is a wreck, the shard still glowing ominously. Annika points out they barely survived, but Cool just scoffs at her sudden pessimism. He coughs, turning his attention to their fallen ally, but his eyes widen in sudden, horrified realization. Grizz lies motionless on the ground, his core completely dark. Cool can't understand, certain he had just saved the doll. But his core is shattered, his life force bleeding away. He realizes the massive burst from his final punch, sent shrapnel flying across the entire battlefield. Turns out his heroics came with a bit of collateral damage. Annika turns away from the fallen doll, but Cool rushes to Grizz's side, insisting he can be fixed. The broken doll can only spit blood, his life fading. He tells Cool that there's no coming back from this. A battle core isn't just a part, it's their very soul. Cool refuses to accept it until Annika's hand stops him. She holds him back, knowing it's already too late. He screams that they can't just leave him here to die, but Grizz looks up at him with a strange final calm. And with his last breath, he thanks Cool for the warmth of his anima. His core shatters, but a faint smile plays on his lips. Cool can only kneel there, refusing to accept what's happened. Annika looks on, her own expression a mask of quiet sorrow. His face contorts in a silent, furious scream, but their moment of grief is interrupted by a new arrival. The mysterious observer from before, offering some very timely drunken philosophy. He warns Cool that he's stepped into a much larger, deadlier world, a world that will consume him if he's not careful. Meanwhile, back at the Adventurers Guild, Kalia demands answers from a mysterious, hooded figure. Where the guild director demands to know exactly what happened, and Tapa begins to spin a very heroic and very fictional tale. Kalia listens, her expression a mask of professional concern. He explains that everything was fine until Cool showed up, claiming our boy and his doll nearly got him killed. As the director listens in, he recounts the terror of the Summit Golem's arrival, a story that leaves Kalia completely stunned. He then blames Cool for getting Grizz caught in the crossfire. Kalia's concern grows as she asks if Cool is still alive, but Tapa shakes his head, blaming the kid's stubbornness for his own death. He glances over, wondering if they're buying his story. The guild director steps forward with a quiet click. He calls it quite the tale, his hand resting on the report. In fact, he declares it a cause for celebration that Tapa returned safely. He dismisses Cool's death as a regrettable but necessary lesson. He places a hand on Tapa's shoulder, noting the loss of a doll is damaging, but nothing that can't be replaced, as Kalia watches from the side. Her expression, however, remains sharp and unconvinced. She asks Tapa to confirm he saw Cool die with his own eyes. He insists he did, but she just smiles, saying she had to be sure. But Cool and Annika stand before them, very much alive. He tells them he's never seen a ghost before. A very awkward reunion under the moonlight. Tapa can only stare, his lie completely falling apart. Kalia asks him to explain the little discrepancy in his story. He knows falsifying a report could cost him his license. But then, a new much slimier plan begins to form. He throws an arm around Cool, playing the part of a relieved friend. He whispers that they can both benefit if Cool just plays along, and dangles the one thing he knows our boy wants most. He whispers a new story for them to tell, offering a guild referral as payment. Annika watches, knowing a license could be the key to helping any. Cool's head hangs low, the weight of the decision crushing him, but he looks up with cold fury, asking what happened to Grizz. Tapa just scoffs, dismissing his fallen doll as a worthless failure, a response that seems to catch him completely by surprise. And Cool delivers his answer with a crystalline fist to the face, sending the braggart flying backwards through the air. Tapa crashes to the ground with a very undignified thud, leaving Kalia and the director to stare on in stunned silence. The guild director roars, demanding to know who Cool thinks he is. Tapa, meanwhile, is completely out for the count. The director grabs Cool, threatening him for attacking a licensed adventurer. But Kalia's doll, Pearl, prepares to make her move. She appears in a flash, a blade of water held to the director's throat. Kalia calmly tells her doll to stand down, but Pearl refuses, calling Cool her summoner. The director is stunned that she would dare use her craft against him. Her golden eyes burn with an unshakable resolve, and suddenly the man in charge looks very, very scared. Cool reaches out, his hand gently touching the blade. He turns to Annika, telling her it's time to leave. As they walk away, Pearl's weapon shatters into harmless droplets. The director can only tremble, his authority completely undermined. He roars in fury, demanding to know if they understand who they've crossed. Cool glances back, clearly not interested in the man's resume. The director's face twists with rage, his threats falling on deaf ears. But Kalia sees something more than just defiance. She wonders what happened to them as they walk away into the night. The sun sets on a new and much more dangerous chapter of their lives. They sit in silence as the sun sets on their new reality. Annika points out he's just made an enemy of the entire guild. But Cool knows a license was never really on the table for him. Besides, his mind is fixed on a much heavier burden. He tells her Tapa isn't the only one to blame for what happened, admitting with a heavy heart that his final attack is what killed Grizz. The memory of that desperate final punch still fresh in his mind. Annika tries to reason with him, but he cuts her off, blaming his own weakness. He clenches his fist, wondering if things could have been different, and declares he's tired of being too weak to protect the people he cares about. He then makes a very simple and very strange request. He explains that if Tapa deserved a punch, then so does he. and he demands she hit him with everything she has. Annika can only stare, completely baffled by his logic. But Cool's expression remains firm, his resolve absolute. A small smile finally breaks through her confusion. She agrees, promising not to hold anything back. And somewhere nearby, a bird is about to have a very bad day. It's sent flying as a blur of motion erupts from below, and Cool is launched into the sky with a pained cry. The sun sets on another chaotic day, leaving only a makeshift grave to mark a fallen doll. Back at the guild, the story of Cool's rampage is already legend, and his newfound fame has found its way to his oldest friend. Momo is asked what's going on with Cool, a question she can't answer. She admits that lately, she doesn't understand him at all. Her thoughts are interrupted by a very intimidating visitor. Kalia confirms their connection, as Momo's career flashes before her eyes. But instead of a termination notice, she's given a mysterious scroll. Kalia explains it contains options for Cool's very difficult future. She tells Momo that if Cool has any doubts, he should just forget the offer. Momo can only worry about the mess he's made for himself. But Kalia suggests that Cool doesn't see it that way. In his mind, he simply did what he believed was right. Momo realizes that even Kalia understands him better than she does now. With a new resolve, she prepares to find him. Meanwhile, Cool and Annika are already hard at work training. He dodges a volley of ice shards she sends his way, and shatters the final projectile with his prosthetic arm. But the impact causes the shard to react, encasing his fist in crystal. He releases the stored energy in a burst of crystalline shards. He compliments her, saying she's already A-class material. But he's frustrated that he can't summon his own power on command. Annika offers to help motivate him, an offer he wisely refuses. But she thinks his inability to control the power might be a good thing. After all, that same power nearly destroyed him in their last fight. Just then, Cool senses they're not alone. He catches a glimpse of Momo hiding behind a nearby rock, who seems to be questioning her own life choices. She panics as they head her way, her self-esteem clearly not ready for a confrontation. Momo suggests Annika should take a break, relieved the confrontation is over. But Cool explains he's staying behind to test a few more things. Annika tells him not to overdo it, and he just gives her a confident thumbs up. As she walks away, Momo wonders why Cool is staying behind alone. With a determined roar, our boy begins his solo training, which apparently involves punching the local trees into submission. He knows if he can't release the shard's anima burst on command, he'll never be strong enough to earn a license. And so he trains, his fist echoing through the hills, as the sun sets on his desperate one-man war against forestry. The sun sets on his solitary struggle. Momo can only watch from a distance, her concern growing with every blow. She knows he's pushing himself to the breaking point, but worries what will happen if all his effort leads to nothing.
She just wishes he would let her in like he used to.
Cool collapses, frustrated that he can't control the shard's power, until he's finally interrupted by his oldest friend. She explains Kalia sent her with a message, a potential lifeline for him, but Cool can only see the impossible road ahead. She tries to offer some comfort, knowing he's carrying the world on his shoulders. She insists that if anyone can pull through, it's him, but her confidence quickly fades as she admits it's not that simple. Her awkward attempt at encouragement just makes Cool laugh. Momo can only ask what's so funny about their dire situation. He explains that she just reminded him of their younger days. They reminisce about a time when he'd get lost in his work for days, and he admits that whenever he was stuck, she was always the one to pull him back to reality. She smiles, realizing he hasn't changed all that much. With the moment over, Cool finally asks about the message. She impatiently urges him to open it, her curiosity getting the better of her. He finally unrolls the scroll, which erupts in a flash of digital light. Both of them can only stare, caught completely off guard by the display. But Cool's shock quickly turns into a look of pure, unadulterated excitement. Momo, however, is still completely lost, wondering what she's seeing. Cool just smirks, a new, brilliant idea already forming in his mind. The scroll is a holographic invitation to the Shellcorp Battle Expo. Later that night, back at the quiet workshop, Annika sits alone, carefully polishing the mysterious hilt. She holds it up with a smile, admiring her handiwork. But her quiet moment is shattered as Cool bursts through the door. He slams the scroll down on the workshop table, revealing the holographic invitation to the Shellcorp Battle Expo. Annika's eyes widen, the name clearly striking a chord. But Cool is baffled that she even has to ask what it is. He can't believe she's never heard of the biggest name in the business. And so begins a very passionate and very hands-on history lesson. Momo arrives just in time to witness his full-blown fanboy meltdown. He's even geeking out over the scroll itself, made of a rare ether film. He gathers them around, ready to explain the next piece of his brilliant plan. He points to a small chip on the scroll, identifying it as an anima core. He sends a small current into it, hoping to form a link. The holographic symbols begin to move, confirming it's a pre-recorded message. A full-blown hologram erupts from the scroll, startling everyone in the workshop. The message is delivered by a fluffy, two-horned hare, which is a choice. The hare explains it's here to share vital information about the Battle Expo. Cool can only wonder what kind of marketing team approved this mascot. The hare explains the expo is a massive tournament for adventurers and dolls, where the winner will receive a staggering 5 million crowns, a number that leaves all three of them completely speechless. The hare explains the tournament is open to everyone, even unlicensed adventurers with a history of property damage. The message ends, leaving the three of them in stunned silence. The Shell Corp Battle Expo, a free-to-play tournament. Momo and Annika can only wonder what that could possibly mean. But Cool knows exactly what it means, a chance to save Annie. Momo tries to talk him down, reminding him of Kalaya's warning. Even Annika agrees, admitting they aren't prepared for this. She points out his power is unreliable and her own craft is uncertain. He listens, knowing they have a point, but his resolve doesn't waver. He turns to leave, but his friends want to know where he's going. But his mind is already made up, his gaze fixed on the night sky. He makes his way to a local tavern, a place he hasn't visited in a while. The bartender greets him, noting his long absence. Cool explains a custom part for the man's service doll is on its way, but he's more than happy to take the payment in advance. Their conversation is interrupted by the sound of the door creaking open. He smirks, seeing the person he was waiting for has arrived. It's Wisp, the specialist, who was apparently lured here by the promise of a drink. She cuts straight to the point, asking what's so important he had to drag her out here. Cool presents the hilt, returning it to its rightful owner. He explains he didn't mean to take it without permission. Wisp just stares back, her expression unreadable. She tells him to keep it, having no desire for the weapon herself, admitting it's brought her nothing but misery, though she's surprised a doll could wield it. She tries to leave, but Cool is distracted by her impressive drinking speed. He calls out for her to wait, his business not yet finished. He stands with a new resolve, explaining there's one more thing he needs. He looks her dead in the eye, asking her to teach him. A request that is met with a very familiar, unimpressed stare. A request that is met with a swift and painful rejection. Cool can only stare, surprised she didn't even consider it. She reminds him she's retired, and there are plenty of others who could help. But Cool knows only she can teach him to control the shard's power. Wisp's eyes narrow, demanding to know what he's planning. He tells her his grand plan, the Shell Corp Battle Expo. A plan she immediately dismisses as completely idiotic. She's heard of it. A tournament for adventurers chasing glory and fame. He even offers her a cut of the prize money, but she's not interested. She turns away, done encouraging fools to throw their lives away. She tells him he wouldn't last 2 seconds in that tournament. Cool admits she might be right, but that doesn't matter. He slams his hand on the table, his resolve hardening. He declares he's doing this with or without her help, because he doesn't care if it costs him his life. Later that night, he walks away, his plea having failed. But his thoughts are interrupted by a familiar voice. It's the woman from before, calling for his help from a window. He rushes inside, only to find Eni's condition hasn't changed. She's still unconscious, her life force slowly fading. The woman explains that Eni's temperature is unstable. She asks him to watch over her as she leaves the room. Cool sits by the bed, his face a mask of quiet worry. He can see her condition is only getting worse. His eyes then fall on a colorful pinwheel across the room. And a memory from long ago begins to surface. A time when a younger Eni eagerly awaited his return. He proudly presents her with the simple, colorful toy, bragging that he got it for a steal from a clueless merchant. A gift that sparked her dream of one day seeing the capital. He remembers her pouting, wishing she could go outside, and how she treasured the simple gift, keeping it safe. He'd asked what she was hiding, and she'd panicked like a true criminal. Their mother figure had caught her, asking about her secret stash. Cool had watched, his curiosity piqued. Inside the box was a strange handcrafted key. He realized this was how she spent her lonely days. She'd complained he looked too soon, her masterpiece unfinished. But he'd only knelt down, patting her gently on the head, and told her that he loved it, thanking her for the gift. A memory of a simple, gentle touch. Back in the present, his resolve hardens as he whispers her name. He makes a quiet promise to return, no matter what it takes. He says his goodbyes to the woman who raised them, explaining his impossible plan to save his sister. A final, quiet farewell before he leaves everything behind. And so, a new journey begins at the sun-drenched docks. Cool and Annika stand ready, their sights set on the horizon. But their departure is interrupted by a very familiar, frantic voice. It's Momo begging them not to leave just yet. Cool is stunned as Momo asks why they're leaving so early. He explains they're hitching a ride on a merchant ship. A ride that comes with some very cramped accommodations. And from a distance, their mother figure watches them go. Her quiet vigil is interrupted by a friendly neighbor. He offers his sympathies, hoping the boy finds what he needs. But his words seem to trigger a painful memory for her. She remembers the last time someone she loved sailed away and never returned, a memory that makes her declare the gods owe her this one. And as they watch the ship, her friend can only agree. Momo offers a tearful farewell at the docks, but their departure is cut short by a familiar voice. It's Wisp, questioning his plan to enter the tournament so unprepared. Cool simply tells her he'll do whatever it takes. With a heavy sigh, the specialist finally relents. She agrees to train him, her expression hardening with resolve. Cool and Anika can only stare, stunned by her change of heart. She explains she can't live with the guilt if they get themselves killed. As the ship calls for them, Wisp declares they won't be taking it, a statement that leaves Cool completely baffled. Wisp explains they only have 2 months to prepare, and that a cozy ship ride simply won't cut it. And so their time in their small town comes to an end. Elsewhere, a mysterious woman watches over her creations. She muses that it's time to see which of her babies is the strongest. A sinister smile plays on her lips, her excitement growing. 2 months pass in a blur of intense training. Cool and Annika arrive at their destination, weathered but ready. They've reached Paport City, the site of the Battle Expo, and it seems every adventurer in the world got the same memo. The streets are flooded with hopefuls, all drawn by the promise of 5 million crowns. A city now teeming with every kind of adventurer and doll imaginable. One cynical observer complains about the unlicensed losers hoping for a lucky break. While deftly lifting a money pouch from an unsuspecting victim, he then laments the thieves who take advantage of them. The irony is apparently lost on him. Elsewhere, a pink-haired adventurer named Lisa shares a similar sentiment with her battle doll, Utah. She argues that both the hopefuls and the thieves are just deadbeats looking for a quick payday. Yuta then points out another pair of so-called deadbeats in the crowd. Lisa's eyes fall on Cool and Annika, pitying the amateurs who can't even afford decent gear. And Yuta can only agree as our heroes walk past, completely unaware of the eyes on them. Lisa admits she's bored of watching the amateurs and is hoping for a light workout. And just like that, a new opportunity presents itself in a nearby alley. A trio of local thugs tries to shake down a pair of hooded figures, but their threats are apparently so bad, even they seem confused by them. From above, Lisa critiques their technique, noting they've removed all incentive to cooperate. With a firm grip, she decides it's time to get involved. She lands in the middle of the alley, because making a quiet entrance is for other people. She turns to the victims, questioning the logic of the entire mugging, a question that the lead thug does not appreciate. Lisa just calmly wraps her knuckles, ready to give him a practical demonstration. She unleashes a bladed whip from her boot and launches a devastating kick at the lead thug. The blade pierces clean through his hand. He can only scream as she retracts the weapon. She dares him to finish his sentence with a confident smirk. Her little lesson only enrages his two friends, but Lisa seems more than ready for round 2. Looks like her light workout just arrived. Just as the hooded victims suddenly rush past her, one of them leaps into the air, drawing a glowing blade, and ends the fight with a single blinding slash. The second thug is left frozen solid in a block of ice. Yuta recognizes the power, identifying it as an icecraft. The last thug realizes with horror he's facing a battle doll. He decides to ignore the doll and go straight for the summoner. He brings his blade down with a furious, energized strike, only to hit nothing but air, his aim apparently as bad as his life choices, until he feels the cold touch of a blade against his throat. The hooded figure holds her sword steady, giving him one chance to walk away, an offer he seems very, very inclined to accept. And with that, the last of the thugs make a very wise retreat. Lisa turns her attention to the two mysterious figures. She approaches them, impressed by the doll's power and demanding to know who they are. Her eyes fall on the boy's arm, recognizing the doll tech prosthesis. Cool and Annika remove their hoods, explaining they're just travelers passing through. He then proceeds to give them the full, unabridged story of their journey, a tale that leaves Lisa completely and utterly stunned. She can't believe they were in the Echaron Peaks, a notoriously dangerous region, a place known to adventurers as the Echaron Crypt, a graveyard with no reward. Cool just sweats, remembering Wisp's brutal training regimen in that very place. Lise puts the pieces together, dismissing him as a country bumpkin who got lucky. But Yuta notes that Cool's dodge showed considerable battle experience. Lise begins lecturing him, saying his shabby clothes made him a target. She tells him to take responsibility for his doll, no matter how he dresses. She decides to take them on a little detour, much to Yuta's annoyance. Cool and Annika can only wonder where they're being dragged off to. They arrive at a massive, opulent building known as the Gallery. Lise explains it's a one-stop shop for all adventurer needs, a place to get quality gear and, conveniently, register for the expo. Cool and Annika can only stare, overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the city. Inside, he marvels at the specialized shop, a world away from his workshop. Cool questions a set of armor that seems to protect absolutely nothing important. Lisa, however, is thrilled with Annika's new, much more practical outfit. Yuta brings up the cost, but Lizzie waves it off, saying it's on her tab. Annika confirms the new gear feels good, allowing for a full range of movement. But Cool knows the material is expensive and wonders why they're being so generous. He realizes it's because they don't even consider him and Annika competition. And so, with their new gear, the four of them head deeper into the gallery. Cool is just happy his old clothes got a free upgrade, much to Lisa's annoyance. She explains they didn't want to be associated with his unique fashion sense. Cool asks Annika what's next, and she suggests visiting the local craftsman. Cool suggests they check out a store called Pocket Gear. He launches into a lecture on gear brands, explaining Pocket is the best. But Lisa cuts him off, her tone suddenly cold. She declares she wants nothing to do with that company. With that, she turns and says it's time to register for the tournament. They're greeted by a polite attendant at the registration gate. The massive doors swing open, revealing a blinding light. Lisa turns to them, explaining this is where they part ways. She warns that the next time they meet, they'll be enemies. A threat that leaves Cool and Annika completely baffled by their new friends. But as Lisa walks away, Cool's eye catches a familiar detail. He recognizes the unique bracelet on her wrist. Annika's voice snaps him out of his daze. She asks what's taking him so long, telling him to hurry up. Cool can't help but notice she's starting to sound just like him. He calls for her to wait and rushes to catch up. They step through the gate into a pitch-black room, immediately bumping into each other, until a small glowing object appears in the darkness, which of course Cool immediately touches, unleashing a blinding flash of light. The light resolves into a holographic screen, officially welcoming them to the tournament. Cool realizes the system is voice-activated. A prompt appears, asking if they'd like to begin. They're then given a choice between two paths, basic or elite, a choice that leaves both of them completely baffled. The system explains the basic path is free entry, granting a common class doll, while the elite path requires a fee for a rare class doll and other perks. Cool quickly realizes it's a pay-to-win system for a better starting doll. So it's a gacha game. Great. He can't help but wonder just how much the elite experience costs. Annika warns him against it, but Cool just flashes a curious grin. And the system prepares to reveal the price tag for victory. Annika asks if he's still curious about the pay-to-win option, but Cool roars that he'd never abandon his partner, choosing the basic path. The system locks in their choice, granting them some starting gear. He examines the strange new items, a coin and a wristband, and the first challenge is revealed. Hunters and hares. Cool seems less than impressed as Annika asks for an explanation. He explains it's a simple game of tag with hunters and prey. He knows they need to be on the hunter team to have any chance. But their strategy session is cut short by an approaching figure. Annika recognizes the doll from the alley, now dressed as an attendant. Yuta greets them with a small, welcoming flame on his finger. A welcome that Cool immediately recognizes as a threat. And Yuta unleashes a massive wave of blue fire, engulfing our heroes in the swirling vortex. With a simple wave of his hand, he teleports them to the first stage of the tournament. Cool is blinded by a sudden flash of light, finding himself in a strange, sunlit forest. He realizes they're not alone, as other adventurers appear in the trees. And Annika confirms his suspicion. They're not the hunters. A blonde-haired hunter looks down with a confident smirk. His partner seems equally amused by their new targets. A hulking brawler cracks his knuckles, ready for a fight, and a silent archer takes aim from the trees. The system officially announces the first challenge, Hunters and Hares. And with a flash of light, the game begins. Cool and Annika find themselves surrounded by their fellow contestants. The rules are finally explained. The rich kids hunt the poor kids. Annika states the obvious, confirming they're the prey. And their objective is simple, survive for a week or be eliminated. The blonde hunter, Yuba, looks down with an arrogant smirk. His partner, Jern, watches from a branch with equal confidence. She wonders if Annika will be a problem, but he scoffs at the free-to-play gacha rates. He's certain their premium dolls will make short work of a common class unit. Their first doll is Melum, a rare class brawler with the power of Earth. And their second is Kaya, a water-wielding archer of the same rank. Cool and Annika can only look up, realizing they're completely outmatched. The system gives the official signal to begin the hunt. The hunters give the order, and their dolls leap into action. The archer lands with a powerful stomp, ready to draw first blood. The archer draws her bow, water swirling around her. An arrow of pure, condensed anima spins with deadly force. She unleashes her craft, a massive river god made of water. The spectral dragon roars down upon them, ready to wash them away. But Cool just smirks, knowing they've clearly never read a book. You don't attack the heroes right after a training arc. Annika stands ready, her own blade glowing with a cold light. She summons her own craft, a massive prismatic shield of ice. The water dragon slams into her defense, the impact cracking the crystalline barrier, but the shield holds, shattering the attack into harmless vapor. The archer can only stare, her ultimate move completely nullified. The hunters can only stare, completely stunned by her defense. But Cool just smirks, knowing the fun is just getting started. Because the water dragon reforms, its spectral form roaring back to life. And now it's hurtling back towards them, much to the other contestants' horror. The attack flies past Annika, heading straight for Cool. He screams at Annika, who calmly explains her new craft is a work in progress. So, friendly fire is definitely on. Her craft, the Prism of Aegis, not only defends but redirects attacks. The hunters recognize it as a high-level craft, demanding to know her rank. But when he checks the registry, her data is completely unavailable. But their brawler just cracks his knuckles, unimpressed by her defensive skills. He slams his fists together, declaring that a shield is no way to win a fight. Cool can only wonder what kind of craft this confident doll possesses. With a furious roar, the brawler slams his fist into the ground. His eyes glow with power as he channels his anima. The entire forest floor begins to tremble beneath his might, and a massive hand of solid rock erupts from the earth. Cool and Annika can only look up as the attack hurtles towards them. His craft is revealed, a colossal stone fist called the God Hand. The brawler laughs, certain they've never seen anything like it. But Cool just scoffs, saying it's not even the biggest rock fist he's seen this year. The hunter can't believe the summoner is actually planning to fight. The brawler dismisses it as a bluff, assuming Cool is powerless. He calls Cool useless on his own, a comment our boy takes personally. But Cool just clenches his fist, the word echoing in his mind. His mind flashes back to his brutal training with Wisp. He remembers her lesson about controlling the shard's overwhelming power, a power he could only borrow, never truly own, and her very unique and very effective motivational techniques. But that training taught him how to unleash the shard's power on command, a lesson the brawler is about to learn firsthand. Cool leaps forward, his eyes blazing with a familiar green light. The brawler can only stare, stunned by the summoner's impossible speed. He tries to counter, slamming his own fist into the ground. But Cool is already weaving past the rising stone hand. He meets the colossal fist with a single, devastating punch. His eyes burn with a power they've never seen before, and the God Hand shatters into a million pieces. The archer can only stare, her attack completely forgotten. The hunters look on, their confidence completely shattered. Cool just smirks, asking who they were calling useless now. Elsewhere in the forest, the sun shines through the canopy, but the peace is shattered as two figures descend from the trees. Two other contestants flee, wondering if they've lost their pursuer. The man can't understand why another hare is hunting them. They stop to catch their breath, searching for any sign of her. He breathes a sigh of relief, thinking they're finally in the clear. Famous last words. Until he's suddenly yanked into the air, leaving his partner in shock. She screams into the empty forest, demanding the attacker show themselves. A hooded figure appears right behind her with a simple, chilling reply, and ensnares her in a trap of shadowy tendrils. A sudden cry echoes through the trees as a fiery bird soars above. It's a massive phoenix, a creature of pure, burning anima. Its eyes glow with an intense, focused power. A power reflected in the eyes of its summoner. This is Iman, a rare-class fire doll watching from atop a waterfall. Below, someone is enjoying a quiet moment by the water. Her name is Corinth Pocket, an elite player taking a break from the hunt. But her sunbathing is interrupted by a very unwelcome shadow. She complains that he's ruined her peace, asking what he wants. Iman reports that their target has collected another shell. Corinth complains that their mysterious ally took long enough to capture another shell. She then questions why Iman even needs this person, blaming her own doll for being too useless to do it herself. A quick info dump reveals Iman's craft is a bird of prey, perfect for scouting but useless in a real fight. Corinth reminds him of the shell's true value, known only to the hunters, and questions his trust in their mysterious ally. But she smirks, confident their ally is trapped, a lesson in not getting attached to your tools. 5 days have passed in the tournament, and the forest is deceptively quiet. Cool and Anika are hiding in a tree, with Cool arguing they should just wait out the clock. But their quiet stakeout is shattered by a sudden scream for help. Anika immediately leaps into action, ignoring Cool's frantic pleas to keep a low profile. He can only follow, knowing her heroic instincts are about to get them into a whole new world of trouble. They rush through the forest to find a familiar figure on the ground. It's Lisa, the pink-haired adventurer they met in the city. She explains she was ambushed, her shell stolen by an unknown assailant. She says her attacker wasn't a hunter as Cool rushes to help her, but she stops him, insisting she has something important to tell him. Annika watches, wondering where Lisa's battle doll has gone. Lisa leans in close, reminding him of her promise not to hesitate. Her pained expression vanishes, replaced by a triumphant smirk as she reveals a coin. Cool realizes with dawning horror that she's just stolen his own shell. And our boy learns a valuable lesson about trusting strangers in a death game. Cool's fury grows, realizing he's been played. Annika rushes forward, her ice blade ready for a fight. But Lisa holds up a hand, stopping her in her tracks. She explains that her own doll is waiting in the trees. Annika's eyes dart to the forest, seeing a faint glint of light. Lisa continues, explaining that Yuta has Cool perfectly lined up. And if Annika moves, she'll be in the market for a new summoner. Annika can only grit her teeth, trapped by the impossible choice. With a sharp crack, her ice blade shatters into nothing. Lisa just smirks, pleased with the doll's obedience. With her prize in hand, Lisa makes a quick getaway. But Annika isn't about to let her go that easily. Cool lands with a thud, his expression hardening. He tells Annika it's time to get their shell back. As the sky darkens, their hunt begins. They race through the forest, tracking their new target. But Cool can't shake the feeling that something is wrong. The rain begins to fall as he asks if she's found anything. She confirms Lisa is gone and their time is running out. He decides they'll have to steal a shell, as Annika notices a strange new problem. Annika gets Cool's attention, pointing to something above them. A strange golden liquid drips from the rocks, which she identifies as anima fluid. They follow the trail up to a small overhang. Cool climbs up to investigate because of course he does. The golden fluid continues to drip, a clear sign of a wounded doll. He finds Yuta, Lisa's battle doll, slumped against the rocks and bleeding out. The doll looks up, his eyes barely focusing. He clutches his chest, his core clearly damaged. They bring him to shelter, where he explains they were ambushed by another hunter. Annika tries to help, but he grabs her hand, his condition worsening. Cool examines the wound, realizing this isn't normal battle damage. He sees the doll's core is intact, but his body can't process the anima. Yuta begs him to help Lisa, but Cool points out she just betrayed them. The doll insists she's being manipulated by a player named Corinth Pocket. The name sends a jolt of recognition through Cool. Annika reminds him of the gear company. As he explains the Pockets are a powerful family. He wonders why a rich girl would bother with a tournament like this. Yuta explains that Corinth isn't here for the money. She's here to stop Lisa. His voice is filled with pain as he remembers what Lisa has endured. And we're thrown back 12 years, to a young girl standing alone before a dark mansion. Yuta explains that everyone knew of the Pocket family's legacy, a dynasty built on crafting the finest gear for adventurers. The head of the family, Delos Pocket, bore that legacy alone. He had several children, one of whom would inherit the empire. But his plans were complicated by the arrival of a new daughter, Lisa. Though not a true heir, her siblings saw her as a threat. They tormented the young girl, starting with her only friend, tearing it to pieces right before her very eyes. The cruelty spread through the household, fueled by vicious rumors. They made her feel worthless, a stain on the family name. Scorned by her family, Lisa was granted a single reprieve, a moment of hope in the form of a new service doll. He knelt before her, a gentle presence in her lonely world. Yuta explains he was just a simple doll, meant to be a distraction. But for the lonely girl, he became her only friend. Together, they found a small piece of happiness, even if she treated him more like a personal taxi service. For the first time, Lisa had a reason to smile. She finally had a companion who would always be by her side. But a few years later, the world changed with the arrival of battle dolls. With battle cores capable of crafting anima, the old tools became obsolete, and the Pocket Gear empire crumbled almost overnight. Desperate not to be left behind, Lisa's father began reckless experiments. He wanted to transplant a battle core into a service doll, and he had the perfect test subject. Yuta was taken away from a screaming Lisa, her protests ignored. She was held back, begging them not to take her only friend. Her pleas fell on deaf ears as she was left alone in the rain. Yuta was subjected to a world of darkness and pain. The scientists were so concerned they decided to just paralyze his vocal cords. He was taken apart and rebuilt so many times he could only pray for the end. The researchers learned a battle core was too powerful for his body. The only solution was a rare ore, far too expensive for a service doll. So they scrapped the project, tossing him into storage to be forgotten. He was left alone in the darkness, a failed experiment. His hope faded, lost in the silence of his prison. He could only feel the unstable power burning in his chest. Until one day, a sliver of light broke through the darkness. It was Lisa who had finally come to find him. She ran to him, her face a mask of tearful relief, and held him close, refusing to let him go ever again. She apologizes for taking so long to find him, but he just smiles, glad to be of service once more. Back in the present, he explains the core is slowly killing him, and Cool identifies the rare ore that can save him. Amaranth. He remembers the strange bracelet Lisa was wearing. Yuta explains that was the last of the ore they had, which is exactly why Corinth Pocket stole it from them. She's using it as bait, knowing Lisa will risk everything to get it back. And so he begs them to save her from her own desperation. Meanwhile, a mysterious figure calls out to Corinth, ready to spring their trap. Corinth questions why her doll is tracking her half-sister, but the mysterious ally explains there's no need, because their target has already arrived. Lisa stands before her, ready for a confrontation. The two sisters share a look of mutual animosity. Lisa presents the bag of shells she was sent to collect. Corinth snaps her fingers, calling her doll to action. Iman's phoenix swoops down, snatching the prize from Lisa's hand. It delivers the bag to Corinth, who looks pleased with the results. She counts the 7 shells, deciding it's an acceptable offering. Lise demands the return of the stolen ore. But Corinth just scoffs at her loyalty to a broken doll. She decides to test just how far that loyalty goes. And with a cruel smile, she tells Lisa to beg for it. Lisa trembles, her fists clenched in silent fury. Corinth gives her an ultimatum: beg or watch her doll die. Lisa struggles with the humiliating choice, her pride warring with her love. Corinth watches, surprised by her sister's hesitation. But Lisa finally breaks, falling to her knees in defeat. She looks up, tears streaming down her face as she begs for Utah's life. A cruel smile plays on Corinth's lips. She bursts into laughter, savoring every second of her sister's pain. She tosses the ore to Lisa, telling her to get out of her sight. But Lisa's humiliation quickly turns to defiance. She looks up with cold fury, calling her sister incompetent. Corinth is disgusted by her sister's sudden change in attitude. She then reveals the hunt isn't over just yet, explaining that the prey have no say in the matter, because the shells aren't just targets, they're currency. 1 shell can summon a common doll, but with 5, you can forge them into something far more powerful. A premium shell, capable of summoning a rare class doll or greater. Lise can only stare, stunned by this sudden turn of events. But Corinth just smirks, ready to cash in her prize. The premium shell dissolves into a stream of pure data, and a massive torrent of blue energy erupts from the ground. A new figure begins to form within the swirling vortex. Its hand closes around a staff, its power growing. The energy solidifies into a suit of spectral armor, revealing Sue, a legendary class doll of the wind element. Corinth celebrates her new legendary class doll, thrilled with her luck, a sight that leaves Lisa completely stunned. But the new doll Sue seems less than thrilled to be awake. Corinth immediately questions the personality they gave him. She reminds him that's no way to speak to his summoner, and explains that even a legendary doll has to prove its worth. She points him towards Lisa, his first target, and with a cruel smile, she orders him to destroy her doll. Lisa can only stare in horror at the command. Shu just scoffs, wondering where this so-called doll even is. Corinth points to the trees, telling Sue that Iman will lead the way. Lisa can only swallow her fear, knowing she's completely outmatched. She turns and flees, desperate to reach Utah before they do. Corinth orders her new doll to move, but he seems to be lamenting his career choices. Liza races through the forest, her face a mask of grim determination. But Shu appears behind her, taunting her for even trying to run. She looks back in shock, wondering how he caught up so fast. She unleashes her bladed whip, determined to stop him at any cost. But her attack is met with a flash of swirling blue energy, as Shu effortlessly catches the blade with his staff. But his attack is intercepted by a flash of blue light. Lise can only stare, stunned by the sudden arrival. Shu seems less than impressed by the interruption, as Annika holds him back with her own icy blade. And Cool looks on, ready to join the fight. He leaps into the air, his arm glowing with power, and lands a solid punch, sending the legendary doll flying. So much for that premium gotcha pull. Liza recognizes her unlikely saviors, wondering why they're here. Cool tells her to go, reminding her that Yuta is waiting. He insists they'll handle this, urging her to run. Lisa runs, knowing she has to get back to Utah. Corinth is less than impressed by their heroic interruption. She orders Iman to stop Lisa from escaping. She then turns her attention to her new legendary doll, and tells Sue to show them what he's made of. But Shu seems to have a serious attitude problem, questioning her authority. He unleashes a torrent of wind as Cool realizes the impossible odds of her gotcha pull. Our boy starts to regret his earlier confidence, wondering what they're up against. But Annika gives him a silent signal, suggesting a coordinated strike. They both charge forward, knowing they have to hit him first. Shu scoffs, completely underwhelmed by his first opponents. He declares that the title Legendary isn't just for show. It's a sign that he wields the power of the gods. Annika closes the distance, her blade aimed at the doll, but Sue just smirks, his confidence unshaken. He effortlessly blocks her strike, knowing it's just a distraction. He expects Cool to appear from her shadow, planning to vanish before our boy can even strike. But Cool's fist connects, glowing with the shard's power, and Shu unleashes a vortex of wind, sending Cool flying back. Cool is stunned by the doll's impossible speed. He realizes it's like Shu knew their every move. The legendary doll seems unimpressed by this revelation. He's suddenly in Cool's face, analyzing the shard in his arm. He calls it a sloppy but powerful burst of pure anima. Cool throws another punch, hoping to connect this time, but Shu just smirks, clearly one step ahead. He dodges the attack with contemptuous ease, leaving Cool to stare at the empty space where he used to be. Shu sits down, completely bored by their efforts. Cool can't believe it, wondering if the doll can see the future. But Annika isn't about to back down. Dashing across the water with a trail of ice, her eyes burn with a cold, focused fury. She unleashes a storm of jagged ice shards, a display that Shu finds completely underwhelming. Cool screams for her to stop, realizing the doll can predict her every move. Shu just smirks, confirming his terrifying ability. He declares they've only seen a fraction of his true power, and effortlessly deflects her entire barrage of attacks. He unleashes his craft, a vortex of pure wind. But Annika refuses to be intimidated by his display. She raises her blade, knowing he can see her every move. Cool watches from the sidelines, trying to find a weakness. Shu just sits, his craft creating a void around him. His expression is one of complete, utter boredom. He doesn't even move as her attack surrounds him. The first shard strikes his chest but shatters on impact. Her entire barrage is completely useless against his defense. He seems more annoyed by the interruption than anything else. He kneels, letting the ice shards pepper his form, before unleashing a massive shockwave of his own. His staff spins, creating a vortex of wind that deflects every single shard. He moves like a phantom, weaving through her attack with impossible speed, and appears before her in an instant, explaining Cool was only half right. Annika is stunned as he reveals his visions aren't just predictions. He calls them a mandate, a future that is already set in stone. But Annika refuses to accept it, her blade crackling with renewed power. He explains that he can read every action, every flinch, as a ripple in the wind, because the wind is loyal to him, and him alone. So he's basically a walking weather forecast with an attitude problem. He unleashes his craft, the whispers of the western wind, and explains this is the true power of a legendary class doll. Cool finally understands, realizing he reads the wind to see the future. So he decides they just have to attack faster than he can think. A truly groundbreaking strategy, but Shu just scoffs at his simple-minded approach. He explains there's more than one way to command the wind, and demonstrates with the speed of the southern wind, moving like a phantom between both of his opponents. Annika raises her blade, preparing for the inevitable assault. As Shu unleashes the fury of the northern wind, Annika desperately blocks the attack, her ice blade straining. But her craft shatters under the overwhelming force. She's left stunned, her only defense completely broken. Shu explains he's already seen her future, and it ends with her complete and utter destruction. But his cold gaze is suddenly drawn to a new arrival, because Cool is charging in, ready to punch way above his weight class. The two of them lock eyes, a clash of wills before the impact, and their powers collide in a massive, chaotic explosion. Elsewhere in the forest, another battle rages on as a new fighter enters the fray. A new fighter stands in a torrent of swirling fire. Annika screams Cool's name, caught in the blast's wake. She spots him through the smoke, still on his feet. She rushes to his side as he struggles to recover. His arm sparks, overloaded from the desperate punch. He insists he's fine, but his expression is grim, because Shu stands before them without a single scratch. Corinth just scoffs, asking if they've finally understood. She explains the massive gap in power between their dolls. After all, if he loses, then the premium gacha rates mean nothing. She explains his godlike abilities guarantee a win worth millions, and taunts them, asking what their own victory is even worth. Shu seems less than thrilled with his summoner's constant monologuing, but his annoyance turns to shock as he sees a crack in his staff. He turns back to them, the mention of money catching his attention. But Cool knows the value of money better than anyone. He explains that when you're broke, you learn to get creative, a philosophy that seems to strike a chord with the legendary doll. Cool declares that legendary means nothing. Shu is just another problem to be solved, and the doll seems to finally take them seriously. Shu repeats the words, a dark amusement in his eyes. He challenges them to prove it, to show him how they'll solve this problem. Cool's mind races, searching for any possible opening. He knows they can't match the doll's speed, and his future sight makes him untouchable. Every direct assault, every trick has been completely useless. But Annika seems to have a new theory, much to Cool's surprise. She explains that Sayu reads the ripples in the air to see the future. So her solution is to simply create more wind to disrupt his vision. A plan so simple, it's almost certainly stupid. Cool's reaction confirms her theory might need a little more work. But her words spark a new idea in his mind. interfering with his vision. Cool's eyes burn with a new idea, a plan to buy Lisa the time she needs. Elsewhere, under the pale moonlight, Yuta waits in a hidden cave. He clutches his chest, his life force bleeding away as he whispers her name. His strength is fading, his time nearly at an end. Lisa hides at the base of a tree, watching the fiery birds circle above. She knows she can't stay hidden for long, not with Utah's life on the line. But her hiding spot is no secret to the golden eyes watching from the trees. The mysterious hunter taunts her, telling her she can't hide forever. He decides a little storytelling might coax her out of the shadows, and begins a tale of a bird who stole fire from the gods as his phoenix descends. He tells of how the bird's feathers caught fire, and in desperation, it shared its burning gift. The flames grew, taking on a life of their own, until the entire world was consumed by the gift. Lisa can only watch as the fiery birds descend, realizing he's about to burn the entire forest down. She's trapped, with no way to escape the inferno, but the hunter's golden eyes watch from the shadows. A figure dashes through the raging inferno, having finally found his hidden prey. The hunter's phoenix unleashes a torrent of fire, but he's suddenly caught off guard by an attack from behind. He realizes Lisa used the smoke as cover for her approach. She appears from above, ready to strike. The hunter scoffs, saying he's seen this trick before, but his confidence vanishes as he senses a new threat, because Lisa is already descending with her blade drawn. Guess the old tricks are still the best tricks. From a distance, Corinth watches the inferno with mild interest. Her expression remains completely unimpressed by the chaos. Meanwhile, Sue decides it's time to end his own fight. He asks for their brilliant solution, clearly unimpressed. Cool turns to Annika, asking if she's ready for their plan. He admits it's a long shot, but it's the only one they have. Annika's resolve hardens, her ice blade flaring with power. Sue decides their time is up and lunges forward to attack. But Annika unleashes her ultimate defense, the Prism of Aegis. Shu looks up, wondering if a simple shield is their grand plan. Annika screams, pouring all her power into the expanding craft. The shield erupts into a massive dome, trapping them all inside. Guess he's not getting out of this conversation. Cool knows his arm has one last shot, and he has to make it count. Shu scoffs, recognizing Cool's one and only move. He's certain our boy will never be able to land a hit. But Cool just smirks, asking who said he was the target. He slams his fist directly into the wall of the ice dome, unleashing a massive beam of pure, concentrated energy. The beam ricochets off the crystalline walls, and Sue realizes he can't predict its chaotic path. The reflections are completely random, a storm of light he can't read. His eyes widen as a stray beam heads straight for him, and he's forced to deflect the unpredictable attack. The beam of pure anima ricochets wildly inside the dome. Shu can only watch, admitting he can't read its chaotic path. For the first time, his future sight is completely useless. Cool explains even Annika can't control it, a fact she seems to find insulting. But their trick has only enraged the legendary doll. His eyes burn with a cold fury, his patience finally gone. He becomes a blur of motion, deflecting every single beam. Cool knows he's at his limit. Another blast could kill him, but Annika steps forward, ready to take his place. She tells him she'll handle the rest from here. Sue decides he's had enough of their games. His eyes glow with a cold fury as he prepares his final attack, and shatters the entire ice dome with a single devastating blow. Annika realizes with horror he's been holding back this entire time. But her own resolve doesn't waver, even against a legendary doll. Shu appears before her, his patience clearly at an end. She meets his strike, her ice blade straining against his staff, but he easily overpowers her, sending her flying back. Elsewhere, Lisa deflects a massive burst of anima from her own opponent. As Annika prepares for one final, desperate strike of her own, Annika unleashes a final desperate burst of icy power, but Shu's eyes see a different battle entirely. He moves to end it, but she catches his hand mid-swing, a move he easily overpowers, grabbing her by the face. He tells her to savor this moment because it's her last. But Cool watches from the side, his expression hardening. Annika explains that in her short time awake, Shu scoffs, asking if she's learned how to beg. She just smirks, saying she's learned that desperation reveals weakness. And as Sue looks up, he realizes her desperate attack was just a distraction. Because her real attack is a massive spear of ice hurtling towards him. He's too busy dodging her initial barrage to see it coming. He turns just in time to see Cool catch a new weapon, a massive battle axe formed from Annika's own craft. But even this is just another part of their desperate plan. Shu can only stare, realizing he's been completely outmaneuvered. Because a new challenger has just entered the field, it's Kaya explaining that even the strongest opponents have a weak spot, and she unleashes her own devastating projectile. Guess the enemy of my enemy is my temporary arrow-slinging friend. Shu realizes with horror that she's aiming for his core. but Shu catches the massive ice axe with his bare hand. He admits he can't keep up with their chaotic attack patterns. Annika explains he was too reliant on his one trick. While his power was given to him, she had to earn hers. The legendary doll is forced to craft a new weapon to defend himself. For the first time, he's actually being pushed to his limit. She reveals she's learned from every opponent, making their skills her own. So she's basically a walking software update. And now she unleashes all that power in a single decisive strike. But Sue just smiles, saying he'll remember her. And with that, Annika's body dissolves into light, her time in the game at an end. She tells him she's sending him back where he belongs. But Shu's eyes widen as he recognizes the weapon in her hand, because she's perfectly replicated his own legendary staff. His focus is broken by another attack from the side, as the other hunter unleashes a massive wave of fire. Shu is caught between two attacks, forced to make a choice. He grits his teeth, his future sight failing him. He moves to block the fire, believing it's the greater threat. But Annika's final expression tells him he chose poorly. As the archer's real attack continues on its deadly path, Shu's eyes widen in horrified realization. As the archer's true attack pierces his core, the legendary doll is sent flying back across the battlefield. He can only stare up, unable to believe what's happened, wondering how he could possibly lose to a common-class doll. But Cool can only cheer, his faith in his partner rewarded. Their temporary ally, however, seems far less impressed. Annika releases her massive ice dome, the battle finally over. But Cool's arm sparks, the strain of his last attack taking its toll. His celebration is cut short as he notices something is wrong. A massive wave of energy erupts from the point of impact. But Annika can only stare, confused by what's happening. Shu crackles with unstable power, his own body turning against him. From a distance, the hunter Jern dismisses him as a loser, declaring his only value now is as a pile of scrap. Shu realizes with horror she's remotely dismantling him. So much for company loyalty. Annika turns to Cool, asking what the hunter means. He explains it's a process for scrapping gear, not for living dolls. And Annika understands the horrifying truth. His core will detonate. The legendary doll can only kneel, betrayed by his own summoner. Shu roars in fury, questioning how she could discard him. But the hunter, Jern, is presented with a simple choice, and Sue realizes with dawning horror that she's serious. With a cold press of a button, she confirms his deletion. The legendary doll can only stare, his pride completely shattered. His core erupts in a torrent of unstable energy. The blast expands, threatening to consume the entire battlefield. Annika screams for them to run as they flee the shockwave, but Cool stops, offering a strange, quiet apology, a sentiment that leaves the exploding doll completely baffled. Cool explains the horrifying process of a forced core shutdown. The anima builds and builds with nowhere to go, until the doll's body shatters under the pressure. Annika asks why he's explaining this, but Cool says the lesson isn't for Sayu, it's for her, a warning of what happens when that much power is unleashed. Annika just smirks, apparently eager to find out. Shu can only laugh, realizing his legendary status means nothing. He screams in fury as his body begins to break apart, and his core erupts in a blinding final explosion. Annika can only stare, unable to believe what's happening. Annika can only watch as the legendary doll's core detonates. The archer Kaya is sent flying by the massive shockwave, but she's saved by a last-second wall of ice. As Shu's body is consumed by the unstable anima, Cool stands his ground, watching the spectacle unfold. Annika screams his name, terrified he's too close to the blast. But he calmly explains that she missed a crucial detail. He says the air changes just before lightning strikes, and a massive bolt of energy strikes the ground where he stood. But Cool is already somewhere else, completely unharmed. The explosion culminates in a massive bolt of lightning. Annika braces herself against the overwhelming shockwave. But a hand appears, absorbing the raw, untamed energy. A new fighter arrives, wielding the power of the storm itself. He turns with a smirk, asking if everyone is all right. The hunter Jern can only stare, wondering how he survived. Her partner scoffs, saying you have to do things yourself. A comment that only seems to enrage Jern further. He taunts her, saying she wouldn't know anything about that. She screams for her doll, Iman, who is nowhere to be found. Lisi charges forward as Jern tells her to save her breath. From the trees, the mysterious hunter explains Iman was intent on finishing Utah. His form crackles with a strange, golden energy. But now, Utah was the last thing Iman would ever see. Jern draws a hidden blade, ready for a desperate counterattack. But Lisa is too fast, slamming her against a tree and catching her wrist. She tells the hunter it's over, that she's already lost. Jern's confident smirk is replaced with pure, unadulterated terror. Lisa's own blade crackles with a familiar blue energy, and she drives it into Jern's shoulder with a pained cry. Jern can only scream in fury, questioning Lisa's sanity. She grabs the blade, mocking Lisa's noble blood. But Lisa just looks down, noting it doesn't seem so special now. Jern grits her teeth, insisting this fight isn't over. She reveals she still has 2 summons left in her hand, but Lisa just tells her to make them quick. Her eyes burn with cold fury as she remembers what they did to Utah, and she promises it will never happen again. Just as the mysterious newcomer unleashes his own power, and a massive shockwave of energy erupts across the battlefield. Yuta slams Jern against a tree, his power flaring. He glares down at the defeated hunter. Leaving her completely stunned and disoriented, he turns away, hoping she's learned her lesson. His attention then turns to Lisa, who's trembling nearby. She collapses to her knees, overwhelmed by the fight. Tears stream down her face as she admits how terrified she was. She was certain she had lost him forever. Guess their reunion tour is back on. Yuta's expression softens, his own relief clear. He gently pats her head, a quiet moment of comfort. Yuta gently comforts Lisa, telling her he was never worried. She looks up, saying she knew he would always come for her. Meanwhile, Cool collapses to the ground in utter exhaustion. He complains that the first round took way too much effort. Annika points out how tough the competition is already. Cool can only stare at the horizon, the prize money feeling impossible. But Annika reminds him they'll be eliminated without their stolen shell. Just as Lisa flicks a familiar coin into the air and tosses it back towards a very confused Cool. She explains it's the very same shell she stole from him. Cool asks why she's giving it back, wondering about her own team. Lisa explains she's not that selfless, and that Corinth only needed 5 shells. She stands with Yuta, admitting that she owes them 1. Because Yuta is everything to her, and she'll never forget they saved him. But she warns them not to expect any mercy in the next round. And with that, the 2 of them walk away, leaving our heroes behind. Cool watches them go, hoping their good deed doesn't backfire. He collapses to the ground as Annika asks what he meant. She reminds him of his own words. If something is broken, you fix it. Cool is stunned, realizing she's held on to that simple lesson. Annika admits she once saw her damaged state as a liability. She understood why someone might discard her, but after everything they've been through, she now knows how painful it is to lose those memories. Cool just smiles, telling her one thing is certain. Their journey is far from over, but they're one step closer to their goal. He knows things will only get harder from here on out. Back home, their mother figure sits by Eni's bedside. She reads his letter, tears streaming down her face. It's a simple note, promising more money is on the way. And elsewhere, a mysterious figure watches their every move. Looks like they've officially made it to the highlight reel. Elsewhere, a woman approaches a man, surprised to see the president studying tournament footage. He recognizes her as Lux, who seems to be enjoying the chaos her babies are causing. Her eyes fall on a screen, identifying one of the contestants as Corinth Pocket. She then notes that one of their own legendary class dolls was defeated in battle, and is stunned to learn he lost to a third-party model, as the president asks to see. The screen reveals the unlikely victors, Cool and Annika. The president dismisses it as a simple mismatch of skills, a matter of bad luck. But Luck seems to sense there's more to this story. The president's calm facade breaks as he crushes a chess piece, his gaze fixed on Annika's face. And a new dangerous connection is forged in the shadows.